The cafeteria fell silent when Sarah Kim slammed her tray down across from James Park's wheelchair. "We need to talk," she said, loud enough for 3 tables to hear. James looked up from his untouched lunch, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair. Around them, students at Seoul International Academy leaned closer, phones already tilted at angles that looked casual but captured everything. Sarah's perfectly curled hair caught the fluorescent lights. Her uniform was pressed crisp, skirt hemmed exactly to regulation length. She looked like someone who had never made a mistake in her life. "Here?" James asked quietly. "Why not? Everyone already knows anyway." Sarah's voice carried that peculiar mix of pity and irritation he'd heard 1,000 times since the accident. "I've been thinking about this for weeks, James. We both know this isn't working." His stomach dropped, but he kept his face neutral. 2 tables over, Mason Lee had his phone pointed directly at them, not even pretending anymore. The basketball team sat behind him, all watching. James recognized the look in their eyes, the same anticipatory glee people got before watching a car crash video. "Sarah, can we please do this somewhere? I'm dating Logan now," she cut him off. "We've been together for 3 weeks. I didn't know how to tell you, but honestly, you had to know this was coming." Logan Hayes. 6'2". Point guard. Full scholarship already lined up for D1 University of Michigan. Sarah had tutored him in chemistry last semester, back when James was still doing physical therapy 4 hours a day, still believing the doctors when they said he might walk again with experimental treatments that cost more than his family would earn in 5 years. 3 weeks, James repeated. The words felt distant, like someone else was saying them. "Don't make that face. You know I tried, James. I really did. But you're not the same person anymore. You don't even go into the sanctuary. You just sit in your dorm room or come here and stare at your food like this." She gestured at him, a sweeping motion that somehow encompassed everything he'd lost. "I'm 17. I can't spend my senior year being a nurse." Someone laughed. James didn't look to see who. "I brought your stuff." Sarah pulled a small box from her bag and set it on the table between them. James could see the edge of the watch he'd saved 3 months of sanctuary earnings to buy her, back when he still had legs, back when his future was a Division II track scholarship and weekends hunting primitive creatures in the first sanctuary with his training squad. "Keep it," James said. "I don't want it. It's weird." Sarah pushed the box closer. "Logan bought me a sacred blood beast soul storage pendant. Real gold. He killed the creature himself." Of course he did. Logan Hayes came from a family that owned 4 shelters in the second sanctuary. His father was a shelter lord. His older brother had reached surpass level at age 23. The Hayes family crest was a silver wolf, and Logan wore it on a ring that probably cost more than James's wheelchair. "Cool," James said. Sarah stood up. For a moment, something flickered across her face, maybe guilt, maybe relief. "I hope you figure things out, James. I really do. You were going somewhere once." She picked up her tray and walked to the table where Logan sat with the basketball team. Logan pulled her onto his lap immediately, kissing her neck while maintaining eye contact with James across the cafeteria. The team erupted in cheers and catcalls. Mason Lee's phone was definitely recording. James sat perfectly still, breathing through his nose, counting to 10 like his therapist taught him. The cafeteria had returned to normal volume, but he could feel eyes on him, could hear the whispers starting to build like static. "Did you see his face?" 3 weeks, she said. "That's brutal. I heard his parents can't even afford the leg regen surgery. They're like, actual poor. He used to be so fast, remember? State semifinals in the 400 meter. What's the point of dating someone who can't even walk into the sanctuary?" James wheeled himself away from the table, leaving his lunch untouched. The hallway was emptier, quieter. He made it halfway to the elevator before his hands started shaking. The bathroom was his sanctuary now, the only place with a lock, the only place he could breathe without someone watching. James rolled himself into the accessible stall and engaged the deadbolt. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Someone had scratched Logan Hayes' fucks into the metal divider, which felt cosmically appropriate. He pulled out his phone. $73 in his bank account. The leg regeneration surgery cost $1.2 million at the cheapest clinic, $2.8 million at the good ones where you didn't risk dying from infection or ending up with legs that looked human but couldn't bear weight. His parents had sold their house already. They were living in a 2-room apartment near the factory district, both working double shifts. His mom packed semiconductors. His dad drove delivery trucks 16 hours a day. They'd saved $40,000 in 8 months. At that rate, James would get his surgery when he was 19. If he lived that long. He opened his messages. 12 texts from his former training squad, all sent 3 months ago, all saying variations of "sorry man and hope you recover and hit us up when you can walk again." 0 texts since. His scholarship letter was still in his email. "We regret to inform you that due to your medical condition, we are unable to offer admission at this time. We wish you the best in your recovery." James deleted it. Again. He deleted it 40 times, but kept checking his email like maybe the universe would rewrite itself. A knock on the stall door made him flinch. "Occupied," he called out. "James? It's me." Emily Chen's voice was soft, cautious. "I saw what happened. Are you okay?" Emily. Captain of the academic decathlon team. Quiet, smart, one of the few people who still talked to him like he was human. She'd brought him notes when he missed 2 weeks of school after his 3rd failed surgery attempt. "I'm fine," James said. "You don't sound fine." "I'm in a bathroom stall, Emily. I'm fantastic." Silence. "Then, I brought your bag. You left it by the table." James unlocked the stall and rolled back. Emily stood by the sinks, holding his backpack. Her uniform was slightly wrinkled, her glasses smudged. She looked at him with the kind of concern that made his chest tight. "Thanks," he said, taking the bag. "Sarah's awful," Emily said. "Everyone knows Logan's been cheating on his last 3 girlfriends. She'll figure it out. I really don't care." "Liar." Emily adjusted her glasses. "You know what I do when I feel like the world is crushing me? Solve differential equations? I go to the sanctuary." Emily smiled slightly. "First sanctuary is pretty safe if you stay near the shelter. And ordinary creatures still give gene points. It's not much, but it's something. Progress." James stared at her. "You go into the sanctuary?" "Twice a week. My family isn't rich either. Can't afford the gene arts academies or the elite training programs. But meat is meat, and gene points are gene points." She shrugged. "I'm at 87 ordinary gene points now. Started at 0 6 months ago." James had 62 ordinary gene points, all earned before the accident. His primitive count was 34. Mutant and sacred blood were both 0 because he'd never been strong enough to hunt anything beyond basic creatures. "I can't exactly run away from danger anymore," James said. "You have arms. You could use a crossbow." Emily's expression was serious. "I'm just saying, sitting in your dorm room watching other people live isn't going to make you feel better. And maybe if you earned enough money from Beast Soul sales, you could. Beast Souls have a 10% drop rate. I'd have to kill 1,000 creatures to get enough valuable souls for surgery money. So kill 1,000 creatures." James laughed, bitter and sharp. "In what world?" Emily met his eyes. "In the world where you decide sitting still is worse than dying trying." She left before he could respond. James wheeled himself back to his dorm room, a space barely large enough for his bed and wheelchair. His roommate had requested a transfer after 2 weeks, citing incompatibility, which was code for "I don't want a room with a cripple." He stared at the ceiling until the sun set. At 11 p.m., he made a decision that felt less like choice and more like inevitability. The Sanctuary portal in Seoul International Academy was located in the gymnasium basement, accessible 24/7 for students with active gene licenses. James had maintained his license even after the accident, mostly because canceling it would make everything too final. The portal room was empty at this hour. Just James and the swirling dimensional gateway that looked like someone had punched a hole in reality and filled it with silver static. He wheeled himself up to the threshold. Entry was voluntary. You touched the portal, it scanned your gene signature, and pulled you through. Your real body went. Your real body could die. James had $73. His parents were killing themselves for a surgery he might never get. Sarah was probably in Logan's bed right now. His training squad had forgotten he existed. He touched the portal. The sensation was like being turned inside out and reassembled in the space between heartbeats. When James opened his eyes, he was sitting in his wheelchair in the middle of a stone plaza, surrounded by 50-foot walls and watchtowers. The first sanctuary's main shelter, a fortified city called Steel Garden Shelter, controlled by a coalition of Korean families and corporations. The sky was wrong here. Too red, too low, like the sunset was painted on a ceiling just out of reach. The air smelled like copper and earth. James rolled himself toward the main gate. Guards in steel armor watched him but didn't stop him. Everyone who entered the portal appeared in the shelter plaza. The wilderness was beyond the walls. "You sure about this?" one guard called. She looked maybe 25, with scars on her arms and a primitive tier beast soul spear strapped to her back. "No," James said honestly. She laughed. "Fair enough. Stay near the tree line if you want to stay alive. And if you hear howling, get back here fast." The gate was massive, reinforced steel covered in scratches from creature attacks. It opened just wide enough for James to roll through. The wilderness hit him immediately, the oppressive weight of being prey in a world built for predators. Trees that looked almost Earth normal but grew at wrong angles. Grass that shimmered purple in patches. The distant sound of something screaming. James had a hunting knife strapped to his belt. He'd brought a small crossbow, preloaded, resting across his lap. 20 bolts in his backpack. A canteen of water. Enough food for 2 days if he rationed. His plan was simple: kill enough ordinary creatures to harvest meat, sell what he could, earn gene points from what he ate, and repeat until he either made progress or died. He rolled himself along a worn path, wheels catching on roots and rocks. Sweat soaked through his shirt within 20 minutes. His arms burned. An hour in, he saw his first creature. It looked like a rabbit crossed with a lizard, fur and scales, 6 legs, eyes that glowed faintly yellow. An ordinary creature, barely dangerous to trained hunters but still capable of killing an unarmed human. James raised his crossbow. The creature spotted him and froze. James pulled the trigger. The bolt punched through the creature's skull. It collapsed, twitching once, then still. James waited for the rush of victory, but felt only exhaustion. He wheeled himself closer and pulled a carving knife from his pack. The creature's meat was pale and stringy. He cut away usable portions, wrapped them in cloth, and stored them carefully. No beast's soul materialized. Just a corpse and meat. He ate a piece raw, gagging on the taste but forcing it down. A warmth spread through his chest, gene points registering, adding to his ordinary count. Maybe 0.5 points. Maybe less. It would take 200 kills like this to max his ordinary genes. James laughed, and it came out broken. He killed 4 more creatures before sunset, 2 more rabbit lizards and 2 bird-like things with talons. 11 pounds of meat total. No beast souls. His ordinary gene count ticked up to 64.5. The shelter guards let him back in without comment. James found a merchant willing to buy his meat for $30. Ordinary creature meat wasn't valuable, but it was edible and gave gene points to anyone under the 100-point cap. $73 plus 30. $103 total. James wanted to scream. Instead, he rolled back to the portal and returned to Earth. His dorm room was exactly as he'd left it. His phone had 6 messages, all from his mom asking if he'd eaten dinner. He didn't sleep. At 4 a.m., he went back. 3 days became a routine. School, bullying, Sarah kissing Logan in hallways, classrooms where teachers looked at him with pity. Then portal, wilderness, killing, meat, gene points, money. Repeat. James's ordinary gene points climbed to 71. He had $340 saved. His arms developed muscle definition that hadn't been there before. Students stopped bothering him because he stopped reacting. Emily noticed. "You've been going in every night," she said, finding him in the library during lunch. "I can tell. Your eyes look different." "Different how?" "Like you've seen things die." Emily sat across from him. "How many gene points?" 71 ordinary. Emily whistled softly. "That's 9 points in 3 days. What are you hunting?" "Everything I can reach." "Any beast souls?" James shook his head. The 10% drop rate felt like a cosmic joke. He'd killed 47 creatures and gotten nothing but meat and exhaustion. "Keep going," Emily said. "You're doing better than 90% of students here. Most of them pay for gene arts training and never actually hunt." That night, James went deeper into the wilderness than ever before. He'd mapped a route that circled back to the shelter in case of emergency, but took him through denser creature territory. The sun was setting when he found the cave. It was half hidden behind a rock fall, just a dark opening that exhaled cold air. James almost rolled past it. Something made him stop. A smell. Sweet and rotting at the same time. James aimed his crossbow at the entrance and waited. Nothing emerged. He should have left. Every survival instinct screamed to turn around. But James was tired of listening to the part of him that wanted to stay safe and small and broken. He rolled himself into the cave. The temperature dropped immediately. His breath misted. The cave opened into a larger chamber, and in the center, sprawled across smooth stone, was a creature that made James's heart stop. It was easily 12 feet long, salamander-shaped but covered in crystalline scales that refracted the dim light into rainbows. 6 legs, each ending in webbed claws. A tail that forked into 3 sections. Its head was massive, almost dragon-like, with frills that looked like frozen water. A sacred blood creature. Maybe higher. And it wasn't moving. James rolled closer, crossbow raised. The creature's chest didn't rise. Its eyes were filmed over, white and dead. The smell was stronger here, rotten ozone. It was already dead. How long? Hours? Days? The body looked fresh enough that the meat might still be viable. Sacred blood meat was worth thousands. A single sacred blood beast soul could sell for $50,000 or more. James's hands shook as he set down his crossbow and pulled out his hunting knife. He had no idea what killed it. Didn't care. This was fortune falling from the sky, and he wasn't going to question it. He positioned himself near the creature's flank and drove his knife into the scales. They resisted, harder than anything he'd cut before, but eventually yielded. Pale blue blood oozed out, already congealing. James carved for 20 minutes, his arms screaming, his back cramping. He managed to extract a chunk of meat the size of his forearm, maybe 8 pounds of sacred blood flesh worth more than everything he'd earned combined. He wrapped it carefully, hands trembling. Then he looked at the creature's head. Beast souls, when they formed, typically manifested near the brain or heart. James had never personally witnessed one appear, but he'd seen videos, read guides. You had to be the one who killed the creature for it to drop. The soul appeared as a shimmer of light that solidified into a specific form, weapon, armor, mount, pet, or special type. This creature was already dead. James hadn't killed it. But he was the only human here. He placed his hand on the creature's skull and closed his eyes, focusing the way hunters described, reaching for the connection between killer and killed, the strange sanctuary logic that defied physics. Nothing happened. James pulled his hand back, disappointment sharp in his chest. Then light exploded from the creature's body. Not shimmer. Not gentle. A detonation of silver-white radiance that turned the cave into a star. James threw his arms up, blind, his wheelchair rolling backward from the force. The light condensed, spiraling inward, taking shape. 3 shapes. When James could see again, 3 figures stood in the cave with him. They were human. Male. Approximately his age and height. They looked exactly like him. Perfect copies, down to the mole on the left collarbone, the slight crook in the nose from a childhood fall, the specific pattern of freckles on the right shoulder. But their legs were whole. Strong. They stood on feet that looked like they'd never been broken. James stared. The copies stared back. Then, simultaneously, they spoke in his voice. Sacred multiplicity beast soul, axolotl sovereign form, activated. The words appeared in James's mind too, written in silver text that burned behind his eyes. Sacred multiplicity beast soul, axolotl sovereign form legendary grade clones, 3 synchronization, permanent gene link evolution, independent growth plus shared gains abilities, regeneration affinity, beast soul transfer, physical autonomy. James tried to speak. Nothing came out. Clone 1 stepped forward and knelt beside the wheelchair. James's face was calm, alert. We are you. You are us. What we gain, you gain. What you command, we execute. Clone 2 and Clone 3 moved to flank him, forming a protective triangle. This can't be real, James whispered. Clone 2 smiled, and it was his smile. We need to hunt. Now. Before the meat spoils. Clone 3 picked up the crossbow. First Sanctuary has hundreds of ordinary creatures within a mile. We can hunt simultaneously. Triple efficiency. James's mind was fragmenting, trying to process. You're separate? You think independently? We are you, evolved past the limitation of one body, Clone 1 said. Your consciousness expanded. Your potential multiplied. The axolotl regenerates and replicates. So do we. Gene points, Clone 2 added. When we eat creature meat, we gain permanent gene points. You also gain those points through the soul link. We evolve. You evolve. Exponentially. Clone 3 was already at the cave entrance, scanning the wilderness. 17 creatures in immediate range. 12 ordinary, 4 primitive, 1 possible mutant. We can clear them in under an hour if we coordinate. James looked down at his useless legs. Then at the 3 perfect versions of himself, standing on strong feet, ready to hunt. What do I do? He asked. Clone 1 placed a hand on his shoulder. You survive. You plan. You become what they stole from you. His expression hardened, and James saw his own rage reflected back. And we make them regret ever pitying you. The 3 clones moved as one, exiting the cave into the red-lit wilderness. James sat in his wheelchair, alone in the dark, holding 8 pounds of sacred blood meat worth $4,000. His phone buzzed. A message from Mason Lee had been posted to the school social feed. Video of Sarah dumping him, 847 views, 93 comments. James looked at the cave entrance where his clones had disappeared. He heard the first creature scream. Then the second. Then silence. 5 minutes later, Clone 1 returned carrying a dead ordinary creature in each hand. Clone 2 brought 3. Clone 3 had 2 primitives. They dropped the corpses at James's feet. "Harvest the meat," Clone 1 said. "We'll keep hunting." They vanished back into the wilderness. James sat there, surrounded by dead creatures, his hands shaking. Then he started carving. By dawn, the 3 clones had killed 42 creatures. James processed meat until his arms felt like they'd fall off. The clones ate on sight, consuming ordinary meat between hunts. Each one reported the gene points flooding their systems, 0.5 here, 0.8 there. And James felt it too. Every point they gained, he gained. His ordinary gene count jumped from 71 to 83 in one night. His body burned with the evolution, muscle fibers reconstructing, bones densifying, senses sharpening. When the sun rose fully, the clones returned to the cave. James had 97 pounds of ordinary meat, 14 pounds of primitive meat, and the sacred blood chunk. No additional beast souls had dropped, but the sheer volume was staggering. Clone 1 looked at him. "We need a strategy. Returning to Earth with 3 identical copies will raise questions. We can't all appear in public together," Clone 3 agreed. James's mind was clearing, sharpening. "Only I go back to Earth first. You 3 stay here and hunt. I'll sell the meat, gather information, and figure out logistics." "Smart," Clone 2 said. "We'll need to establish individual identities eventually. Different clothes, haircuts, mannerisms. Beast soul transfers," James remembered. "The system said we can transfer beast souls between us. That means if one of you gets a transformation type soul, you could change appearance completely." The 3 clones exchanged looks. Clone 1 nodded slowly. "Long-term goal, one of us becomes a public figure. Shelter lord. Hunter celebrity. Rich and visible. One becomes an infiltrator," Clone 2 added. "Face shifting, information gathering, black market. One conquers," Clone 3 said simply. "Takes shelters, expands territory." "And me?" James asked. Clone 1 smiled, and it was terrifying. "You stay weak. Pathetic. The boy in the wheelchair that everyone pities. The perfect cover." James felt something cold and sharp settle in his chest. Not quite revenge. Not quite ambition. Something new. "How do we extract you 3 from the sanctuary separately?" James asked. "We don't," Clone 1 said. "We're registered as beast souls. Special type. You can dismiss us into soul storage and resummon us anywhere." James focused on the connection, feeling the link between them. With a thought, Clone 1 shimmered and condensed into a point of silver light that sank into James's chest. Then Clone 2. Then Clone 3. He was alone again. But not really. He could feel them in his mind, awake, aware, waiting. James touched the portal return marker he'd planted and felt reality shift. When he opened his eyes, he was back in the Soul Academy portal room, dawn light streaming through high windows. A janitor mopping the floor glanced at him. "Rough night?" "Something like that," James said. He went to his dorm, showered, and changed clothes. His arms were visibly more defined. His chest broader. 83 ordinary gene points worth of evolution showing in his physique. At 7 a.m., he went to the Sanctuary Merchant District, a block of shops near campus that specialized in creature materials and beast souls. He sold all the ordinary meat for $970. The primitive meat went for $2,100. The sacred blood chunk caused the merchant to actually gasp. "Where did you get this?" the man asked, a middle-aged Korean with suspicious eyes. "Found a dead sacred blood creature in a cave," James said. "Figured the meat was still good." "Found. Right." The merchant examined the meat under a specialized lens. "This is fresh. High quality. I'll give you $6,000. Market rate is $9,000 for sacred blood meat this grade," James countered. Emily had made him memorize pricing. The merchant grimaced. "Fine. $8,000, and I don't ask questions." "Deal." James left with $11,070 in his account. More money than he'd seen in his entire life. His phone buzzed. The school social feed was exploding. Someone had posted a comparison photo, James from 3 months ago, muscular, healthy, running the 400-meter. James from yesterday, gaunt, wheelchair-bound, getting dumped. 547 comments. Most were laughing. James closed his phone. That afternoon, he attended classes like normal. Sarah and Logan sat 2 rows ahead, her head on his shoulder. Mason Lee whispered something to his friends and they all glanced back at James. Emily caught him after chemistry. "You look different. Did something happen?" "I got lucky," James said. "Found some good meat." Made some money. How much? Enough to matter. Emily studied his face. Your eyes are sharper. And you're sitting straighter. Gene points? 83 ordinary. Her eyebrows rose. That's impossible to gain in 3 days. I got efficient. James met her gaze. Thank you. For telling me to try. She smiled, genuine and warm. I knew you had it in you. That night, James returned to the sanctuary. He summoned Clone 1 in the wilderness outside the shelter. We need to accelerate, James said. I want all 3 of you hunting different zones. Max out ordinary genes as fast as possible, then move to primitive. Clone 1 nodded. We'll need better weapons. The crossbow is inefficient. I have $11,000. We can afford primitive tier weapons from the shelter armory. They spent 2 hours shopping. Clone 1 got a spear. Clone 2 chose dual short swords. Clone 3 took a bow and 40 arrows. Each weapon was rated for primitive creature hunting. James kept the crossbow. Spread out, James instructed. North, south, east. Hunt until dawn. Eat everything you kill if the gene points aren't maxed. Harvest materials from anything valuable. The 3 clones dispersed into the wilderness. James sat in his wheelchair at the edge of the shelter, watching the red sky, feeling their progress through the link. Clone 1 killed an ordinary creature. 0.6 gene points. James felt his own count tick up to 83.6. Clone 2 killed 3 in rapid succession. 1.8 points total. 85.4. Clone 3 found a primitive creature and had to fight for 12 minutes, taking a gash across his ribs that healed within seconds, regeneration affinity from the axolotl form. He won. 2.1 primitive gene points. James gasped as the surge hit him. His first primitive points in 6 months. By dawn, his counts read, 97.2 ordinary, 38.7 primitive. The clones returned exhausted, clothes torn, covered in blood that wasn't all theirs. But alive. Stronger. This is sustainable, Clone 2 reported. We're learning creature patterns. Hunting is becoming easier. I almost died twice, Clone 3 admitted. But the regeneration saved me both times. Wounds that should have been fatal just closed. Clone 1 looked at James. We're ready for the next phase. One of us needs to start building a public reputation. We can't stay invisible forever. Not yet, James said. First, we max our ordinary genes. All of us. Then we make noise. 3 more days of synchronized hunting. James attended school, endured whispers, watched Sarah and Logan's relationship become official with matching couple items and posted photos. He smiled blandly when teachers asked if he was okay. He ate lunch alone. At night, his 3 clones massacred everything in the first sanctuary wilderness. On the 4th day, James's ordinary gene count hit 100. Then Clone 1's. Then Clone 2's. Then Clone 3's. The transformation was immediate and violent. James felt his body restructure at the cellular level, muscles becoming denser, bones harder, senses amplifying. His wheelchair felt like a costume now, something he wore rather than needed. The clones reported similar changes, but magnified. They'd been using their bodies constantly, pushing evolution through combat. They were becoming something beyond normal humans. Primitive genes next, Clone 1 said. But we need to hunt deeper. Stronger creatures. And we need to start differentiating our appearances, Clone 2 added. I found a merchant selling transformation-type beast souls. Expensive, but possible. James did the math. He had $18,000 now from constant meat sales. Transformation beast souls started at $50,000 for low-grade, went up to $500,000 for sacred blood tier. We need more money, James said. Clone 3 smiled, savage and hungry. Then we hunt sacred blood creatures. Find them while they sleep, ambush them, take everything they have. It was dangerous. Insane. Sacred blood creatures could kill experienced hunters. But James had 3 bodies. 3 chances. 3 independent fighters who shared damage resistance and regeneration. Do it, James said. The hunt took 2 weeks of careful tracking. The clones identified a sacred blood tiger, 12 feet long, covered in metallic fur, teeth like swords. It had a lair in a canyon 20 miles from the shelter. They struck at dawn, all 3 simultaneously. Clone 1 distracted from the front. Clone 2 and Clone 3 attacked from above, dropping from canyon walls with spears and swords. The tiger was fast. It caught Clone 2 across the chest, claws tearing through flesh and bone. He should have died. Instead, he regenerated mid-combat, flesh knitting back together in seconds. The tiger's eyes widened, the first time James had seen a creature show fear. They killed it in 7 minutes. The sacred blood beast's soul appeared immediately, a mount type, the tiger itself in spectral form. Clone 1 absorbed it without hesitation. The meat was worth $47,000. James returned to Earth with enough money to start planning. That night, he got a message from an unknown number: "I saw you sell sacred blood meat 3 times this month. Want to discuss bulk opportunities?" Carter Jong, Second Sanctuary Merchant. James stared at the message. The Second Sanctuary. Where spirits existed. Where shelters could be conquered. Where real power began. He looked at his legs, still useless. He looked at his bank account, $67,000. He thought about Clone 1, Clone 2, and Clone 3 hunting in the wilderness, growing stronger every night. He typed back, "I'm listening." The response came immediately: "Good. Because I think you and I can make each other very, very rich. Meet me at Seoul Portal Station, Gate 7, tomorrow at noon. Come alone." James deleted the message and sat in darkness, listening to his heartbeat. Somewhere in the sanctuary, his clones were still hunting. His primitive gene count was at 64. His legs still didn't work. But for the first time since the accident, James Park wasn't planning to fix himself. He was planning to become something no one could ever break again. Episode 2. Episode 2, Permanent Growth Begins. James stared at Carter Jong's message for 3 full minutes before responding. The problem was simple: Carter was in the Second Sanctuary, which meant he'd already maxed all 4 gene categories in the First Sanctuary and evolved beyond it. Once you crossed that threshold, the dimensional barriers locked you out of lower sanctuaries permanently. Carter couldn't meet James in the First Sanctuary even if he wanted to. Which meant James couldn't meet Carter at all without revealing he was still First Sanctuary bound. But Clone 2 could. James opened his laptop and started researching mask-type beast souls. The market was surprisingly robust. Criminals, spies, and merchants all needed identity protection. Prices ranged from $15,000 for basic voice modulators to $200,000 for sacred blood transformation masks that could restructure bone and tissue. He had $67,000. Enough for mid-tier. James typed his response: "My supplier operates exclusively in First Sanctuary. He doesn't leave the wilderness. If you want to meet him, you'll need to send a representative who can access First Sanctuary. Steel Garden Shelter, North Wilderness, 3 miles out. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. The reply took 5 minutes. "Interesting setup. I'll send my cousin. He's still First Sanctuary. Name's David Jong. He'll have 50,000 cash for a good faith purchase. Your supplier better be legitimate." James closed his phone and summoned Clone 2 in his dorm room. The clone materialized silently, still wearing torn hunting clothes from the last sacred blood kill. Blood, not his own, stained his sleeves. He looked at James with eyes that held all the same memories, all the same rage, but none of the restraint. "We have a problem and an opportunity," James said. Clone 2 listened as James explained the situation. When he finished, the clone was already nodding. "I'll need the masked beast soul first," Clone 2 said. "And a complete identity. Name, background, fighting style different enough from yours that no one connects us. I found a merchant selling a primitive tier face shift mask. Voice modulation, basic facial restructuring, height adjustment up to 3 inches. $28,000. Not sacred blood? We can upgrade later. Right now, we need functional, not perfect." James pulled up the listing. "It's a pet type soul that manifests as a mask. You wear it, it bonds to your face, you can shift features at will within primitive tier parameters." Clone 2 studied the screen. "Buy it. Tonight. I'll meet David Jong tomorrow as someone completely different." James made the purchase through an encrypted sanctuary marketplace, arranging pickup at a neutral merchant hub near the portal district. The transaction took 15 minutes and left him with $39,000. At midnight, Clone 2 collected the beast's soul, a sleek white mask that looked like porcelain but felt like living tissue. The moment Clone 2 touched it, the mask dissolved into silver light and reformed on his face. The transformation was immediate. Clone 2's features shifted, cheekbones rising, jaw widening, nose lengthening slightly. His voice dropped half an octave when he spoke. "How do I look?" "Like a stranger," James said. "Like someone I've never met." Clone 2 pulled the mask off, it peeled away like a second skin, and his original face returned. "Perfect. Now I need a name." "Eric Stone," James suggested. American name, common enough to be forgettable. Background, independent hunter, been in First Sanctuary for 8 months, specializes in ambush kills on sacred blood creatures. Age? 19. Old enough to be experienced, young enough that people won't expect elite level connections. Clone 2 nodded, already embodying the identity. His posture shifted subtly, more aggressive, less cautious. Eric Stone. I like it. What's my story with you? We met 3 weeks ago. You needed someone to process and sell your materials because you prefer staying in the wilderness. I take a 15% cut, you get steady income without dealing with merchants. And the wheelchair? You pity me. Threw me some easy money because you're not a complete bastard. James smiled coldly. Everyone believes that story. Pity makes people stupid. Clone 2 laughed, and it sounded nothing like James's laugh. The mask was already changing more than just his face. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll bring samples, the leftover sacred blood tiger meat and any beast souls Clone 1 and Clone 3 have collected. Speaking of which. James checked the mental link. Clone 1 and Clone 3 were currently hunting in different quadrants of the first sanctuary wilderness. Their primitive gene counts had climbed to 71 and 68 respectively. James felt every point they gained, his own count rising in parallel. Clone 1 killed a primitive creature 40 minutes ago. Got a weapon-type beast soul, a spear. Clone 3 found a mutant creature but couldn't kill it alone. Had to retreat. Mutant creatures are 1,000 times stronger than primitives, Clone 2 said. We're not ready. We will be. Clone 1 is at 71 primitive gene points, you're at 68. Clone 3 is at 68. I'm at 69 because I'm not actively hunting. James did the mental math. If all 3 of you hunt for 12 more hours, we'll break 80. Another week, we'll max primitive. And then we move to second sanctuary? James shook his head. Not yet. Once we cross to second sanctuary, we can't come back. We need to extract maximum value from first sanctuary first, stockpile money, beast souls, materials. Build a foundation so massive that when we finally evolve, we enter second sanctuary as kings, not beggars. Clone 2's eyes gleamed behind the mask. I'll make the David Jong meeting profitable. What's our price structure? They spent 2 hours establishing rates. Sacred blood meat, $8,000 per 10 pounds. Beast souls varied, weapon type primitive souls started at 12,000, sacred blood weapons could hit 80,000. Armor type and mount type commanded premiums. At 6 a.m., James attended his first class, Advanced Gene Theory. The teacher, Mr. Richard Cole, barely glanced at him. Sarah sat 3 rows ahead with Logan, sharing earbuds and giggling at something on his phone. Emily slid into the seat next to James. You look different again. More focused. Just tired. Liar. You've gained at least 10 primitive gene points since I saw you 3 days ago. Your shoulders are wider. Emily lowered her voice. What are you hunting? Does it matter? Yes, because if you're doing something dangerous alone, you're going to get yourself killed. James met her eyes. I'm being careful. That's not an answer. The teacher started the lecture before Emily could push further. The topic was gene point synchronization, how consuming creature meat triggered cellular evolution, why certain gene arts required minimum thresholds, the theoretical limits of human potential. No human has ever maxed all 4 gene categories in all 4 sanctuaries, Mr. Cole said, writing on the board. The current record holder is Han Ji-han. He maxed first and second sanctuary completely, reached 83 mutant gene points in third sanctuary before dying to a super creature. He was considered the strongest human alive for 7 years. Someone raised their hand. What about shelter lords in second sanctuary? Don't they have max genes? Most second sanctuary shelter lords have max genes for first sanctuary, yes. But very few max all 4 categories in second sanctuary. The leap to third is considered prohibitive for all but the most exceptional. Logan Hayes leaned back in his chair, loud enough for everyone to hear. My brother's at 94 sacred blood gene points in second sanctuary. He'll max it by next year. Murmurs of impressed recognition. The Hayes family was elite for a reason. James said nothing, but internally he calculated. Clone 1, Clone 2, and Clone 3 were all gaining gene points simultaneously. When one ate meat, they all benefited individually, but James benefited from all 3. The multiplier effect was insane. If each clone gained 10 gene points per day through hunting, James gained 30. At that rate, he'd max primitive gene points in 3 days. Mutant in maybe 2 weeks if they could start killing mutants. Sacred blood would take longer, but still achievable. No human alive had 3 perfect bodies hunting simultaneously. No human alive was James Park. Class ended. Emily caught his arm before he could leave. Have lunch with me. Please. You're worrying me. James wanted to refuse. He had 12 things to coordinate, Clone 2's meeting to prepare for, sales to finalize, but Emily's expression stopped him. Okay, he said. They ate in the library courtyard, away from the main cafeteria. Emily had brought 2 sandwiches and gave him one without asking. "You're not okay," she said simply. "I'm fine. James. I'm not stupid. 3 weeks ago, you looked like you wanted to die. Now you look like you're planning something that's either brilliant or suicidal, and I can't tell which." James took a bite of the sandwich to buy time. "I'm just hunting. Making money. Getting stronger. Alone? I work better alone." Emily was quiet for a long moment. "Then, I know what happened with Sarah. I know Logan's family is powerful and rich and connected. I know everyone at this school looks at you like you're broken." She leaned forward. "But you're not broken. You're just changing into something they don't recognize yet." James felt something crack in his chest. "Why do you care?" "Because I was you. 2 years ago, before my family could afford gene supplements, before I started hunting." Emily's voice was soft. "I know what it's like to be invisible. And I know what it's like to decide you'd rather die trying than keep living small." James looked at her, really looked. Emily Chen. Quiet, brilliant, overlooked by everyone except the academic decathlon team. She'd said she was at 87 ordinary gene points. That meant she'd been hunting consistently for months, alone, building herself up gene point by gene point. "You're stronger than you look," James said. "So are you." Emily smiled slightly. "Just don't forget there are people who see you. Who care if you survive." After lunch, James returned to his dorm. He had 4 hours before Clone 2's meeting with David Zhang. He spent them reviewing strategies, pricing models, and contingency plans. At 1 p.m., he entered the sanctuary portal. At 1:30 p.m., Clone 2 materialized in the wilderness wearing the face shift mask. His features had transformed completely, sharper, older, harder. He looked like a veteran hunter, not a high school student. At 1:45 p.m., Clone 1 and Clone 3 arrived with their latest kills, 2 primitive creatures and 15 pounds of harvestable meat between them. "How much did you gain?" James asked. 3 gene points each, Clone 1 reported. "We're at 74 and 71 now. You should be at 72. James checked his internal count, 72.3 primitive gene points. The link was perfect. Clone 2 took the meat samples and the weapon-type spear beast soul Clone 1 had collected. This should be enough to prove legitimacy. If David offers a good price, I'll negotiate ongoing supply contracts. Stay in character, James reminded him. You're Eric Stone. Independent, pragmatic, slightly paranoid. You don't trust easily and you don't explain your methods. Got it. Clone 2 adjusted the mask one final time. His voice came out gravelly and unfamiliar. How do I look? Like someone I'd buy illegal beast souls from, Clone 3 said. Clone 2 vanished into the wilderness, heading toward the agreed meeting point 3 miles north of Steel Garden Shelter. James, Clone 1, and Clone 3 positioned themselves half a mile away, hidden but close enough to intervene if the meeting went wrong. At exactly 2 p.m., a figure emerged from the tree line. David Zhang was 19 or 20, wearing expensive hunting gear that probably cost more than James's entire education. He carried a sacred blood sword at his hip and moved with the confidence of someone who'd never had to fear ordinary creatures. His gene points had to be maxed in First Sanctuary, otherwise, he wouldn't have the muscle definition that showed even through his armor. Clone 2 stepped out from behind a boulder. Eric Stone? David called out. David Zhang. Clone 2's voice was perfectly modulated, flat, professional. You have the money? David pulled a credit chip from his pocket. 50,000, as promised. Show me what you've got. Clone 2 unsealed a storage container and revealed the sacred blood tiger meat, perfectly preserved, still radiating faint energy. David's eyes widened. You killed a sacred blood tiger? I ambush things stronger than me. It's what I do. Alone? I don't work well with others. David examined the meat, pulling out a gene scanner to verify authenticity. The device beeped green. This is premium quality. My cousin will pay top rates for consistent supply. How often can you deliver? Once a week. 10 to 20 pounds of sacred blood meat. More if I get lucky. Beast souls? Clone 2 showed him the primitive spear. These are rarer. Maybe 1 or 2 a month. David nodded slowly. My cousin operates a merchant network across Second Sanctuary. He has clients who'll pay 50% above market rate for guaranteed supply. But he needs exclusivity. No. No? I don't do exclusive contracts. I sell to whoever pays best. Clone 2's tone was firm. Your cousin wants priority access? Fine. He gets first offer on everything I harvest. But I reserve the right to sell elsewhere if his prices drop. David studied Clone 2 for a long moment. Then he laughed. Carter said you'd be difficult. All right. First offer priority, no exclusivity. He'll agree to that. Good. Now let's talk rates. They negotiated for 20 minutes. David agreed to $9,000 per 10 pounds of sacred blood meat, higher than market rate because Carter's network could move volume. Beast souls would be priced individually based on type and grade. One more thing, David said. Carter wants to know your source. How are you consistently finding sacred blood creatures when most first sanctuary hunters struggle with primitives? Clone 2 smiled behind the mask. Trade secret. Tell Carter if he wants better hunters, he should train them himself. David laughed again. Fair enough. I'll set up a secure communication channel. Next delivery in 1 week? 7 days. Same location. They exchanged contact information. Clone 2 used an encrypted burner account, and David transferred the $50,000 for the current shipment of meat and the spear beast's soul. The moment David disappeared back into the wilderness, Clone 2 released a breath he didn't know he was holding. James felt it through the link: relief, adrenaline, satisfaction. It worked, Clone 1 said, emerging from hiding. Of course it worked. Clone 3 grinned. We're very convincing. They returned to the shelter together. Clone 2 dismissed the mask, features sliding back to James's original face. The 3 clones stood in a triangle around James's wheelchair. $50,000, James said quietly. And a supply contract with a second sanctuary merchant network. It's not enough, Clone 1 said. We need to scale. 1 sacred blood kill per week won't build the empire we need. Then we hunt more, Clone 3 said. All 3 of us, different regions, coordinated strikes. We can kill 3 sacred blood creatures a week if we're smart. And we need to start collecting beast souls aggressively, Clone 2 added. The real money is in rare souls, transformation types, flying types, special abilities. Meat is just the foundation. James nodded, mind already racing ahead. New priority, max primitive gene points in the next 3 days. Then we shift strategies, start hunting mutants. The gene point gains will be massive, and mutant meat sells for $20,000 per 10 pounds. Mutants are dangerous, Clone 1 warned. Even with 3 of us. So we get better. James looked at each clone in turn. Clone 1, you focus on defense and tactics. Clone 2, you're our merchant and infiltrator, keep building the Eric Stone identity. Clone 3, you're our experimental fighter. Try new techniques, push limits, see what breaks. The 3 clones absorbed their roles. And you? Clone 2 asked. I stay invisible. I go to school, I get bullied, I act helpless. James's voice went cold. And I prepare for the day when everyone who pitied me realizes they were looking at a god and calling him broken. Clone 1 smiled. When do we start? Now. Hunt until dawn. Eat everything. Max those gene points. The 3 clones dispersed into the wilderness. James sat alone in the shelter plaza, feeling their progress through the link. Every kill registered. Every meal consumed. Every fraction of a gene point gained. Clone 1 killed an ordinary creature, 0.3 points. Clone 2 killed a primitive, 1.8 points. Clone 3 killed 2 ordinaries simultaneously, 0.6 points total. James's count ticked upward, 74.0 primitive gene points. His phone buzzed. A message from Emily, are you okay? You left lunch really abruptly. James typed back, I'm good. Just had things to handle. Thank you for caring. A moment later, always. Be safe, James. He closed his phone and watched the red sky darken. Somewhere in the wilderness, Clone 3 screamed in pain, a primitive creature had torn open his arm. Then the regeneration kicked in, flesh knitting back together in seconds. Clone 3 killed the creature and consumed its heart raw. 2.1 gene points. James felt his body evolve in real time, muscle fibers compressing, bone density increasing, neural pathways accelerating. His primitive count hit 76.1. By dawn, all 3 clones returned. Clone 1, 81 primitive gene points. Clone 2, 79 primitive gene points. Clone 3, 78 primitive gene points. James, 79.3 primitive gene points. 2 more days, Clone 1 said, breathing hard. 2 more days of this pace, and we max primitive. Then we move to mutants, Clone 3 added. And things get really interesting. James returned to Earth at 6 a.m. His bank account showed $89,000. His body felt like a coiled spring. His mind was sharp enough to cut. He attended school in a wheelchair, watching students who had no idea they were surrounded by apex predators wearing teenage faces. Sarah walked past him in the hallway without making eye contact. Logan Hayes' chest bumped Mason Lee and they laughed about something James couldn't hear and didn't care about. Emily waved at him from across the courtyard. James waved back. That night, Clone 2 made 3 more sales as Eric Stone, primitive meat to smaller merchants, building reputation and cash flow. Total earnings, $14,000. Clone 1 and Clone 3 hunted primitive creatures until their arms shook from exhaustion. Gene points accumulated like falling rain. On the second day, James's primitive count hit 94. On the third day, it hit 99.7. Clone 1 killed one final primitive creature, a wolf-like beast with metallic fur, and consumed its liver. The gene point pushed all 4 of them past the threshold. 100 primitive gene points. James felt the evolution like lightning through his spine. His body restructured violently, bones cracking and reforming, muscles tearing and rebuilding denser, senses exploding outward. He could hear conversations 3 classrooms away. He could see individual dust particles in the air. His skin felt armored. The clones reported the same transformation, but magnified by their constant combat training. "We're not human anymore," Clone 3 said, staring at his hands. "Not in any way that matters." "Good," James said. "Humans are weak." That night, he received a message from David Jong. "Carter is impressed. He wants to double your contract rate. But he needs proof you can handle mutant tier materials. Can Eric Stone deliver?" James looked at his 3 clones, each one a perfected killing machine with maxed ordinary and primitive genes. He typed back, "Tell Carter that Eric Stone hunts things that would eat his best hunters alive. Mutant materials in 10 days. Triple the current rate." The response came immediately, "Deal. Carter says if you deliver, he'll introduce you to his second sanctuary partners. Real money starts there." James closed his phone. "Mutant creatures," he said to his clones. "We have 10 days to kill one and prove we're not just first sanctuary trash." Clone 1 smiled, and it was terrifying. "Then let's go hunting." They entered the sanctuary together, 4 bodies, 1 consciousness, hungry for evolution. The red sky stretched overhead. Somewhere in the deep wilderness, a mutant creature was sleeping. It had no idea it was already dead. The ravine was a wound in the earth, a jagged scar that dropped 200 feet into darkness, its walls slick with bioluminescent moss that pulsed like a diseased heartbeat. Clone 4 had found it 3 days ago during reconnaissance, tracking unusual mutant movement patterns through Steel Garden's eastern territories. "There's something big down there," Clone 4 had reported, showing James thermal scans on a stolen tablet. "Heat signature matches a mutant tier creature, but the size is wrong. It's massive. Maybe 30 feet long." Now, standing at the ravine's edge with Clone 1, Clone 2, and Clone 3, James, present through Clone 1's eyes via the soul link, was beginning to think massive was an understatement. The air reeked of copper and rot. Poison mist drifted up from the depths in lazy coils, greenish-yellow and thick enough to distort vision. Below, something moved. Something that made the ground vibrate with each breath. Visual confirmation, Clone 2 whispered, crouched behind a boulder with a primitive tier bow. His face shift mask was dismissed, no need for Eric Stone's identity in the wilderness. Centipede wolf hybrid. Carapace plating, metallic sheen, estimate 40 segment body. Head is canine, jaw structure oversized. Spine has venting structures, probably poison dispersal. Clone 3 peered through a scope jury rigged to his crossbow. "I count 6 legs on the front section alone. Claws are 9 inches minimum. This thing could tear through primitive armor like paper." Clone 1, James's primary combat perspective, assessed the terrain. The ravine walls offered vertical advantage but limited escape routes. The bottom was littered with bones, most still bearing scraps of flesh. "Recent kills. Ambush predator," Clone 1 muttered. "It lures prey into the ravine, floods the space with poison mist, waits for them to weaken. So we don't go down," Clone 4 said from his position 50 yards back, monitoring approach vectors. "We draw it up." "With what bait?" Clone 2 asked. Silence. Then Clone 3 grinned, sharp and reckless. "Me. I'm bait." "No," James said through the link, his consciousness spread across all 4 clones simultaneously. It was disorienting, 4 perspectives, 4 sets of sensory input, 4 bodies moving independently but synchronized through his will. "We don't have sacred blood weapons yet. If it catches you, regeneration won't save you fast enough." "Then what's the plan?" Clone 3 challenged. "We've been tracking this thing for 3 days. It's the biggest mutant within 10 miles. If we kill it, that's at least 15 gene points, maybe 20. We can't walk away." He was right. They were at 42 mutant gene points, Every major kill mattered. And mutant creatures this size were rare close to the shelter. Most had been killed or driven deeper into the wilderness by Marcus Hahn's hunting parties. Standard formation, Clone 1 decided. I'll tank. Clone 3 targets joints and eyes. Clone 2 goes for soft tissue under the carapace. Clone 4 coordinates and extracts anyone who gets hit. What if it doesn't come up? Clone 2 asked. Clone 1 picked up a rock and hurled it into the ravine. The stone clattered against the walls, echoing. For 3 seconds, nothing. Then the creature screamed. It wasn't a roar. It wasn't a howl. It was something that bypassed ears entirely and detonated directly inside James's skull, a psychic shockwave that felt like his brain was being shredded from the inside. All 4 clones collapsed simultaneously. James, in his dorm room on Earth, jerked violently in his wheelchair, hands clawing at his head. Pain exploded through the soul link, quadrupled, feedback looped, amplified. In the wilderness, Clone 1 was the first to recover, 3 seconds of pure agony before his mutant-enhanced body adapted. He rolled to his feet, vision swimming. Clone 2 was on his hands and knees, vomiting. Clone 3 was still down, convulsing. Clone 4 had retreated behind a tree, blood streaming from his nose. And the creature was coming. It erupted from the ravine like a nightmare-given form, 40 feet of segmented horror, each plate overlapping the next in metallic black armor. The wolf head was wrong, too large, split vertically down the middle to reveal 3 rows of teeth. 6 legs on the front section alone, each ending in scythe-like claws. The spine vents leaked poison mist with every movement, filling the air with toxic green fog. Clone 1 grabbed his spear, a primitive tier weapon that suddenly looked pathetically inadequate, and charged. The creature's head snapped toward him with inhuman speed. Its jaws opened impossibly wide. Clone 1 dodged left as the bite destroyed the space where he'd been standing. He drove the spear toward the creature's eye. The carapace deflected the blow. The spear tip bent. Joints. Clone 2 screamed, recovering enough to fire an arrow. The shot hit the seam between 2 body segments, penetrated an inch before the creature's flexing muscles crushed the arrow shaft. Clone 3 finally staggered upright, crossbow shaking in his hands. He fired blind, the bolt went wide. The creature's head swiveled toward Clone 3. It moved. Clone 1 saw it happening in slow motion, saw the creature's body coil, saw the attack coming, saw that Clone 3 was still too disoriented from the psychic scream to dodge. Move. Clone 1 roared. Clone 3 tried. Threw himself sideways. Not fast enough. The creature's jaws closed around Clone 3's torso, just below the ribs. The teeth punched through flesh, muscle, bone. The upper and lower halves of Clone 3's body separated. James, on Earth, screamed. Pain beyond description flooded the link, the sensation of being literally torn in half, of organs spilling out, of regeneration kicked in. Clone 3's lower half, still standing, impossibly, began sprouting tissue. His upper half, locked in the creature's jaws, did the same. Flesh writhing, cells multiplying at impossible speed. But the creature started chewing. Grinding the rebuilding tissue between its teeth, swallowing chunks faster than they could reform. Clone 3's regeneration fought back, regrowing what was consumed, over and over, a horrific cycle of destruction and reconstruction. Clone 3 was still conscious. Still aware. Screaming through a half-formed throat as his body was devoured and regenerated simultaneously. James felt all of it. Felt his clone being eaten alive, felt the regeneration struggling to keep pace, felt the horrible realization forming. If the creature consumed him faster than he could regenerate, if it destroyed enough biomass quickly enough, the clone would die permanently. Get him out. James shrieked through the link, his physical body convulsing in the wheelchair, hands tearing at the armrests hard enough to break skin. Clone 1 was already moving. He abandoned the useless spear and threw himself at the creature's head, driving his fingers into the seam where the split jaw met. The regeneration had boosted his strength to superhuman levels, he pried with everything he had. The jaw opened an inch. 2 inches. Clone 2 was there suddenly, driving a hunting knife into the creature's eye. The blade sank deep, the creature screamed again, that psychic detonation. All 4 clones' minds shattered. James's consciousness fragmented. He was Clone 1, fingers breaking as he pried the jaws wider. He was Clone 2, knife slipping in gore as the creature thrashed. He was Clone 3, half regenerated, internal organs visible, still being crushed. He was Clone 4, sprinting forward despite the pain, carrying a backup spear. The perspectives desynced. For the first time since awakening the axolotl sovereign form, James lost cohesion. The soul link fractured. 4 separate minds, 4 separate bodies, all drowning in agony and panic. Clone 1 felt the jaws crushing his arms. Both bones snapped. He didn't let go. Clone 2 drove the knife deeper, twisting, searching for the brain. The creatures thrashing threw him off. He hit the ground hard, ribs cracking. Clone 3's regeneration was failing. Too much damage, too fast. His lower half had reformed enough to stand, but the upper half, still in the creature's mouth, was being liquefied by digestive acids now flooding from glands in the creature's throat. Clone 4 reached the fight. Saw Clone 1's mangled arms, saw Clone 2 struggling to breathe, saw Clone 3 dissolving. Made a decision. He dropped the spear, grabbed Clone 1's shoulders, and hauled him back with strength born of desperation. Clone 1's arms tore, literally ripped away at the elbows, still lodged in the creature's jaws. But the jaws opened. Clone 3's upper half fell out, barely recognizable as human. A soup of organs and bone fragments and regenerating tissue trying desperately to remember what shape it was supposed to be. The creature lunged for Clone 4. Clone 2, still on the ground, picked up the discarded spear. The creature's mouth opened wide. Clone 2 threw himself forward and drove the spear up through the soft tissue under the creature's jaw. The blade punched through the roof of the mouth, through sinuses, into the brain cavity. Clone 2 felt organs being crushed as the creature's weight collapsed on him. Felt ribs puncturing lungs, felt his spine compress. Regeneration kicked in. He pushed. Twisted the spear. Shoved it deeper even as his chest caved in, even as blood filled his throat. The creature convulsed once. Twice. Then went still. Silence. Except for Clone 1 screaming, his arms were gone from the elbows down, stumps fountaining blood before regeneration began sealing the wounds and regrowing bone. Except for Clone 2 gasping, crushed beneath 8,000 pounds of dead mutant, ribs reforming slowly, lungs re-inflating. Except for Clone 3. Clone 3 wasn't moving. James, through Clone 4's eyes, stared at the mass of barely human tissue lying in the dirt. It was breathing. Regenerating. But slowly. So slowly. The digestive acids had done something. Damaged the regeneration itself somehow, corrupted the cellular memory. Clone 4 knelt beside the mass. Watched as it slowly, painfully, rebuilt itself. Skin first. Then muscle. Then bone structure forming beneath. It took 11 minutes. When Clone 3 finally reformed completely, he lay in the dirt, staring at the sky, trembling. I felt it, Clone 3 whispered. I felt myself dying. Really dying. Not just pain, ending. If you hadn't pulled me out. Clone 1, arms half regenerated, stumbled over. Sat down hard. We almost lost you. Clone 2 dragged himself out from under the corpse, chest still crackling as ribs finished setting. That psychic scream. We can't let that happen again. The desync almost killed us. Clone 4 was already examining the creature's body. There's a beast's soul. I can see it forming. Silver light coalesced above the creature's corpse, not near the brain, near the spine. It condensed into a crystalline core about the size of a fist, pulsing with rhythmic light. Clone 4 reached out and touched it. The soul exploded into information, flooding James's consciousness. Mutant-tier beast soul absorb type, special, evolution catalyst integration with sacred multiplicity beast soul, axolotl sovereign form new ability unlocked, predator evolution effect, clones can adapt mid-combat to specific damage types adaptation duration, 10 minutes per trigger cooldown, 1 hour per clone. James, in his dorm room, felt the information settle into his mind like new instincts being written directly onto his brain. The axolotl sovereign form had evolved. The clones could now adapt. If one took fire damage repeatedly, their body would develop heat resistance. If one was poisoned, their metabolism would adjust to neutralize toxins. It was incredible. It was also cold comfort for how close they'd just come to permanent death. Clone 1 looked at his newly regenerated arms, flexing fingers that 10 minutes ago hadn't existed. We need new rules. Combat protocols. We can't just rush in anymore. Agreed, Clone 2 said. That thing should have been a coordinated strike. Instead we panicked. We panicked because the psychic scream broke our synchronization, Clone 4 added. James, you felt it too, right? The link fractured. James, through all 4 perspectives simultaneously again, the sync had restored itself after the creature's death, nodded slowly. I felt it. For about 30 seconds, I couldn't control you properly. You were all separate. That's terrifying, Clone 3 said quietly. If we can't coordinate, we're just 4 normal hunters. Not 4 bodies with 1 tactical mind. Silence settled over them. Finally, Clone 1 stood. We harvest the meat. We take the materials. And then we spend the next week training specifically for situations like this: psychic attacks, desynchronization, emergency extraction protocols. What about gene points? Clone 2 asked. Clone 4 checked the creature's corpse. Mutant tier, this size. We're looking at least 18 gene points if we split the meat evenly. Clone 1 shook his head. We don't split evenly. Clone 3 nearly died. He eats first, gets the maximum points. The rest of us take what's left. Clone 3 looked surprised. That's not. Yes, it is, Clone 1 interrupted. We're one consciousness, but we're also individuals who can be permanently killed. That changes things. We protect each other. We prioritize survival over optimization. James felt the weight of the decision settle through the link. Clone 1 was right. They weren't just extensions of James anymore, they were people. People who could die. People James had almost lost. They spent 3 hours processing the creature. The meat was dense, almost crystalline, streaked with veins of metallic compounds. The carapace plates were valuable, mutant tier armor material worth thousands. The poison glands could be sold to alchemists. The claws would make excellent weapon components. Total material value, approximately $47,000. Clone 3 consumed 40 pounds of the meat raw, gagging on the taste but forcing it down. Gene points flooded his system. Plus 22.7 mutant gene points. Clone 1, Clone 2, and Clone 4 split the remaining meat. Plus 6.8 mutant gene points each. James, through the soul link, gained all of it simultaneously. His mutant gene count jumped from 42.0 to 78.3. The evolution hit him like being struck by lightning. His body in the wheelchair convulsed, muscles tearing and reforming, bones restructuring. His spine arched. Blood vessels burst and regenerated. His senses exploded outward. He could hear conversations 3 buildings away, could smell individual chemical compounds in the air, could see in near darkness. When it passed, James was gasping, covered in sweat, his shirt soaked through. 78.3 mutant gene points. 21.7 to max. At this rate, one more major kill would do it. But James sat in his wheelchair, hands trembling, replaying the moment Clone 3 had been bisected. The sensation of being torn in half. The feeling of dissolving in digestive acids. The horrible certainty that this time, regeneration wouldn't be enough. He'd almost lost a clone. Which meant he'd almost lost part of himself. Permanently. James pulled out his phone with shaking hands and typed a message into the encrypted channel with Clone 4. New priority, research creature types with psychic abilities. I want a database of everything that can break our synchronization. And I want countermeasures. Clone 4 responded immediately, already on it. I'm also researching sacred blood defensive beast souls, metal protection, psychic shielding, sensory dampening. How much do they cost? Starting at $80,000 for primitive tier. Sacred blood versions are $300,000 and up. James checked his account, $136,000 from recent sales through Eric Stone's network. Not enough. We need more hunts, James typed. But safer ones. Nothing with psychic abilities until we have countermeasures. Focus on physical mutants, large, slow, predictable. Understood. I've identified 3 candidates within 5 miles. All standard predators, no special abilities documented. Good. Schedule them over the next week. Stagger the hunts, no more than 1 per 2 days. We need recovery time. What about the Carter-Jong contract? We promised sacred blood materials within the month. James paused. Sacred blood creatures were exponentially more dangerous than mutants. If a mutant had nearly killed Clone 3, what would a sacred blood do? We're not ready, James typed. Extend the deadline. Tell David that Eric Stone is focusing on building inventory of mutant materials first, more reliable supply. That might make Carter suspicious. Let him be suspicious. I'm not risking permanent clone death for a contract. Clone 4 sent back a simple, agreed. James set down his phone and stared at the ceiling of his dorm room. It was 3 a.m. He had class in 5 hours. His body still ached from the sympathetic evolution, 78.3 mutant gene points worth of cellular reconstruction compressed into 10 minutes. His phone buzzed. A message from Emily, can't sleep either? James blinked. Typed back, how did you know I was awake? Saw your light on from the courtyard. I'm pulling an all-nighter for the physics exam tomorrow. You? Just. Thinking. About? James hesitated. Then typed, how easy it is to die. Even when you think you're strong. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, did something happen in the sanctuary? My supplier had a close call. Nearly lost someone. Are they okay? Physically, yes. But it was close. Closer than anything we've faced before. James. I know I've said this before, but please be careful. I don't know what you're involved in, but I can tell it's dangerous. And I can tell you're pushing yourself too hard. James stared at the message. Emily cared. Actually cared. Not because he used to be fast, not because he had potential, not because he could benefit her. She just cared. I'll be careful, James typed. Thank you for checking on me. Always. Now go to sleep. You look exhausted. How do you know what I look like right now? I can see your window from here. You're slumped in your wheelchair looking like death. Sleep, James. Despite everything, despite the pain, the fear, the near loss of Clone 3, James smiled. Good night, Emily. Good night. James dismissed his phone and summoned Clone 1 mentally. The clone appeared in his dorm room, still wearing torn hunting clothes stained with mutant blood. We need to talk about risk assessment, James said. Clone 1 nodded. I know. Today was unacceptable. We nearly lost Clone 3 because we were overconfident. It's not just overconfidence. It's the fundamental assumption that regeneration makes us invincible. James leaned forward. We can die. Permanently. If damage exceeds regeneration speed, the clone is gone. No backup. No resummon. I felt it too, Clone 1 said quietly. Through the link. That moment when Clone 3 was dissolving faster than he could rebuild. I thought we were going to lose him. We can't let that happen again. Agreed. So what's the new protocol? James thought for a long moment. We fight smarter. We retreat when necessary. We prioritize clone survival over gene point gains. And we never, ever, engage a creature with unknown abilities without extensive reconnaissance first. Clone 1 nodded slowly. That means slower progress. I don't care. I'd rather take 6 months to max mutant genes than lose one of you in a week. Something shifted in Clone 1's expression, gratitude, maybe. Recognition that James saw them as more than just tools. What about the shelter takeover plan? Clone 1 asked. We're still targeting Marcus Hahn, right? Eventually. But not until we're strong enough that there's zero risk. We take him down clean, fast, with overwhelming force. No chances. That could take months. Then it takes months. James met Clone 1's eyes. I spent 6 months in this wheelchair watching everyone pity me. I can be patient. Clone 1 smiled grimly. Patient and terrifying. Good combination. Get back to the sanctuary. Help Clone 2 and Clone 4 process the mutant materials. I want everything sold within 3 days, we need that cash for defensive beast souls. Clone 1 vanished back into soul storage. James sat alone in his room, feeling his clones through the link. Clone 2 was bargaining with a merchant in Steel Garden's black market, selling carapace plates. Clone 3 was resting in the wilderness, his body still recovering despite full regeneration. Clone 4 was in the shelter's records office, copying territorial maps onto a stolen data pad. All alive. All functional. All still his. James closed his eyes and let the exhaustion take him. The next morning, James attended advanced gene theory looking like he'd been hit by a truck. Dark circles under his eyes, skin pale, hands trembling slightly from sympathetic evolution aftershocks. Emily took one look at him and frowned. You didn't sleep, did you? I slept. Liar. You look worse than yesterday. Mr. Cole started the lecture before James could respond. Today's topic, evolution thresholds and baptism. When a hunter reaches 100 gene points in any category, Mr. Cole explained, writing on the board, they become eligible for baptism. Baptism is the final evolution stage for that sanctuary tier. It unlocks your body's maximum potential and prepares you for transition to the next sanctuary. Someone raised their hand. But baptism also starts the countdown, right? 7 days until forced transition? Correct. Which is why most elite hunters delay baptism until they've maxed multiple gene categories. The more complete your foundation, the stronger you are when entering the next sanctuary. Logan Hayes leaned back in his chair. My brother baptized with 3 maxed categories in first sanctuary. He entered second sanctuary way stronger than the average hunter. Murmurs of impressed recognition. James said nothing, but internally calculated. He was at 78.3 mutant gene points. If he maxed mutant and then sacred blood, he could baptize with 3 categories maxed, ordinary, primitive, and mutant. That would make him exceptionally strong for second sanctuary entry. But sacred blood gene points were the hardest to obtain. Sacred blood creatures were rare, dangerous, and usually defended prime territories aggressively. He'd need months. Maybe a year. Unless. An idea began forming. After class, Emily cornered him in the hallway. James, seriously. What's going on? You look like you've been through a war. Just tired. That's not, okay, fine. Don't tell me. Emily's voice softened. But I'm making you eat lunch with me today. Real food. You need calories if you're doing whatever you're doing. James wanted to argue, but his stomach chose that moment to growl audibly. Emily smiled. See? Your body agrees with me. They ate in the library courtyard again. Emily had brought enough food for 3 people and refused to explain why. You're either stress eating or you think I'm starving, James said, looking at the spread. Both. Eat. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Emily said quietly, my brother sent another letter yesterday. James looked up. He's been in the spirit shelter for 2 years now. The spirit lord uses him for mining operations, digging out gene crystals from underground deposits. He works 16-hour days. The letter said he's forgotten what sunlight looks like. Emily's voice was flat, emotionless. He asked us to stop trying to rescue him. Said it would just get us killed too. I'm sorry, James said. Don't be sorry. Just promise me something. What? When you eventually go to Second Sanctuary, and I know you will, I can see it in your eyes, don't end up like him. Don't let some spirit turn you into a slave. Emily met his gaze. Be smart. Be strong. But most importantly, be free. James felt something tighten in his chest. I promise. Emily nodded and changed the subject, talking about the upcoming physics exam, about academic decathlon practice, about normal student things that felt surreal given what James had experienced 8 hours ago. But he appreciated it. The normalcy. The reminder that he was still human, still a student, still someone who had friends who cared. Even if those friends had no idea he was becoming something the world had never seen before. That night, James returned to the sanctuary. All 4 clones gathered in the wilderness for what James was now calling post-combat analysis. New protocol effective immediately, Clone 1 announced. Before engaging any creature, we scout for minimum 2 hours. We identify attack patterns, defense mechanisms, and escape routes. We do not rush in. Combat roles are now specialized, Clone 2 added. Clone 1 is primary tank and tactical coordinator. I'm mid-range support and extraction specialist. Clone 3 is assault and high-risk maneuvers. Clone 4 is reconnaissance and emergency backup. We practice synchronized retreat, Clone 3 said. If anyone takes critical damage, the entire team withdraws immediately. No heroics. And we invest in defensive beast souls before offensive ones, Clone 4 finished. Mental protection is priority 1. Physical armor is priority 2. Weapons are tertiary. James, present through all 4 perspectives, nodded. Good. What's our current financial status? Clone 4 pulled out a tablet. Total liquid assets, $183,000. We sold the mutant carapace plates and poison glands through Eric Stone's network. Carter's people paid premium rates. That's enough for 1 sacred blood defensive beast soul, Clone 2 said. Mental protection type. Should help with psychic attacks. Buy it, James ordered. We're not hunting anything with mental abilities until we have protection. Clone 4 made a note. I've also identified our next 3 targets. All physical mutants, no documented special abilities. Estimated gene points, 12 to 15 each. Schedule them over 2 weeks, Clone 1 said. 3 days between hunts minimum. We recover fully between engagements. What about sacred blood creatures? Clone 3 asked. We still need those gene points eventually. Not until we're ready, James said firmly. I want everyone at 90 plus mutant gene points before we even consider sacred blood hunts. And I want full defensive loadouts, armor beast souls, mental protection, emergency healing items. The clones exchanged glances but didn't argue. They'd all felt Clone 3 dying. They all understood the stakes now. All right, Clone 1 said. Let's begin combat drills. Scenario 1, Psychic Attack Breaks Synchronization. Everyone acts independently to achieve tactical objective. Begin. The training session lasted 6 hours. By the end, all 4 clones were exhausted, covered in bruises from sparring, but significantly more coordinated than before. James watched through their eyes, feeling pride mixed with lingering fear. They were getting stronger. But the world was full of things that could still kill them. And James was determined to make sure that never, ever happened again. Even if it meant taking twice as long to achieve his goals. Even if it meant being more cautious, more careful, more paranoid. Because in the end, all the gene points in the world meant nothing if his clones, his other selves, were gone. And James Park refused to lose anyone else he cared about. Not to accidents. Not to creatures. Not to anyone. The warden appeared in Steel Garden Shelter 3 days after the ravine incident. James wasn't there, his physical body was in Seoul, attending a calculus exam he'd barely studied for, but Clone 4 was embedded deep in the shelter's administrative wing, cataloging supply manifests under his false identity as a logistics clerk named Michael Park. The distortion arrived without warning. One moment, Clone 4 was alone in the records room, copying territorial data onto a stolen tablet. The next, the air crystallized into white static, vertical bars of corrupted reality that coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape. It stood 7 feet tall, its form constantly shifting, never quite solid. Where a face should have been, there was only a void filled with scrolling text in a language Clone 4 didn't recognize. Its hands, if they could be called hands, flickered between existence and non-existence. Clone 4 froze. Through the soul link, James felt ice flood his veins. He was sitting in the exam room, pencil hovering over a half-finished integral, and suddenly he was also in the sanctuary, staring at something that made his hindbrain scream wrong wrong wrong. What is that? Clone 2 whispered through the link. He was 3 miles away in the wilderness, mid-hunt. I don't know, James thought back. But it's scanning the room. The warden, because that's what it had to be, James realized with creeping horror, moved through the records room like a glitch in a video game. It didn't walk. It simply occupied different positions in sequential frames, skipping the intervening space. Clone 4 pressed himself against the wall, hardly breathing. The warden stopped in the center of the room. Its void face tilted, as if listening to something inaudible. Then it vanished. Clone 4 waited 30 seconds. 60. 2 minutes. Nothing. He was alone again. It's gone, Clone 4 reported. But I don't think it left the shelter. Through Clone 4's eyes, James could see other workers emerging from offices, looking confused and terrified. Whispers started immediately. Did you see it? White static thing, right? I'm not crazy? That's a warden. My uncle saw one in 3rd Sanctuary. He said they only appear when someone breaks the rules. What rules? The Sanctuary's rules. Evolution caps. Kill limits. Something. Clone 4 slipped out of the records room and headed toward the shelter's main plaza. A crowd was gathering, hundreds of hunters, all murmuring nervously, all watching as the warden materialized again in the center of the square. The shelter master, Marcus Hahn, stood on the raised platform where he normally adjudicated disputes. For the first time since Clone 4 had been observing him, Marcus looked genuinely afraid. The warden didn't speak. Instead, text appeared in the air around it, glowing white letters suspended in 3-dimensional space. Anomalous evolutionary event detected location, Eastern Ravine, Sector 7 timestamp, 72 hours prior nature, mutanteer kill plus unauthorized beast soul integration investigation required. The crowd erupted in confused noise. Marcus raised his hands for silence. Everyone calm down. The warden is here on standard protocol. If you haven't broken any sanctuary regulations, you have nothing to fear. What regulations? Someone shouted. Marcus hesitated. Gene point acquisition beyond natural thresholds. Beast soul hoarding above personal capacity. Unauthorized shelter expansion. The usual. But his voice wavered. The warden's void face turned slowly, scanning the crowd. Clone 4 felt its attention sweep past him, a sensation like being x-rayed, like something was reading the composition of his soul. James, on Earth, felt the scan through the link. His hand clenched around his pencil hard enough to snap it. The exam proctor glanced at him. You okay, Mr. Park? Fine, James said through gritted teeth. Just. Hand cramp. In the sanctuary, the warden's scan completed. More text appeared. Genetic signature anomaly detected subjects, multiple requesting data logs from Shelter Master. Marcus blanched. The shelter keeps basic logs, but detailed genetic scans require. The warden moved. One frame it was in the plaza center. The next, it stood directly in front of Marcus, void face inches from his. Marcus stumbled backward, nearly falling off the platform. The warden extended what passed for a hand. Marcus fumbled with a data chip from his pocket, hands shaking, and placed it in the warden's palm. The chip dissolved into white light. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then the warden's form flickered violently, its static intensifying. More text appeared, this time flickering red. Critical anomaly identified beast soul type, unknown replication classification, forbidden searching for source. Oh hell, Clone 1 breathed through the link. He was hidden in the wilderness with Clone 2 and Clone 3, all three watching through Clone 4's perspective. It knows. It knows about the clones. It can't prove anything, Clone 2 said. We've been careful. Different appearances, different combat styles. It's scanning genetic signatures, Clone 4 interrupted. If it compares our DNA. The warden turned. Its void face oriented directly toward Clone 4's position in the crowd. James felt his heart stop. In Seoul, in the exam room, his body went rigid. The warden took a step toward Clone 4. Another. The crowd parted instinctively, creating a clear path. Clone 4 didn't run. Running would confirm guilt. Instead, he stood perfectly still, controlling his breathing, his heart rate, everything. The warden stopped 3 feet away. Its void face tilted, studying. Text appeared directly in front of Clone 4's eyes. Genetic signature, variant detected analyzing. James, Clone 1 said urgently. We need to do something. Now. James's mind raced. Options. Use predator evolution to alter Clone 4's genetic signature, make it look like a dead zone, something the warden couldn't read. Dismiss Clone 4 back into soul storage immediately, which would leave a sudden void the warden would definitely notice. Have Clone 4 confess to something minor, claim he had an illegal beast soul, pay a fine, redirect attention. Create a distraction using Clone 1, Clone 2, and Clone 3 simultaneously attacking the shelter from different directions. None of the options were good. All of them risked exposure. James made a decision. Predator evolution, he commanded through the link. Adapt to mimic baseline human genetics. Erase anything unusual. Clone 4's body responded instantly. The axolotl sovereign form's new ability activated, cells shifting, gene markers rearranging, the clone's very molecular structure adapting to match a normal first sanctuary hunter. The warden's scan intensified. Analyzing. Analyzing. Variant signature unstable, unable to classify. The text flickered. Changed. Inconclusive subject flagged for secondary review. Then the warden moved on, continuing its scan through the crowd. Clone 4 released a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Did that work? Clone 3 asked. I don't know, James thought back. It flagged me for review but didn't detain me. That's something. The warden completed its scan of the entire crowd. Apparently finding nothing definitive, it returned to the center of the plaza. More text appeared. Investigation ongoing. All hunters, report unusual beast soul activity. Non-compliance will result in forced sanctuary ejection. Warden station established, monitoring continuous. The crowd erupted in panicked whispers. Forced ejection. That meant being thrown out of the sanctuary entirely, banned from entry, cut off from gene point acquisition, essentially crippled as a hunter. Marcus stepped forward, voice shaking slightly. How long will the monitoring last? The warden didn't respond directly. Instead, a portion of its static body separated and formed into a smaller construct, a floating orb about the size of a basketball, pure white, featureless. The orb drifted to a corner of the plaza and settled there, hovering 3 feet off the ground. Monitoring station active, duration indefinite. Then the warden itself dissolved, leaving only the orb behind. Silence. Then chaos. Hunters started talking all at once, some angry, some terrified. Marcus tried to restore order but his voice was drowned out. Clone 4 slipped away in the confusion, heading for the shelter gates. We need to leave, Clone 2 said through the link. All of us. Right now. Where? Clone 3 asked. If we flee, the warden will definitely flag us as guilty. If we stay, it might identify us anyway, Clone 1 countered. James thought frantically. The warden had flagged Clone 4 for secondary review but hadn't detained him. That meant the scan was inconclusive, predator evolution had worked, at least partially. But the monitoring station was permanent. Every time the clones entered Steel Garden, they'd be scanned. Unless we don't flee, James decided. We adapt. Clone 4 stays embedded in the shelter under his false identity, Michael Park, boring logistics clerk, totally normal. Clone 1, Clone 2, Clone 3, you stay in the wilderness. Hunt in remote areas, avoid the shelter entirely except for supply runs. And what about you? Clone 2 asked. The real James? I stop entering the sanctuary personally. I stay on Earth, coordinate through the link. If the warden is looking for genetic anomalies, it's looking for me specifically. So I become invisible. Clone 4 frowned. That means you won't gain gene points directly. Only through us. That's fine. You 3 hunt, I benefit through the soul link. We've already proven that works. But what about Eric Stone? Clone 2 asked. I'm supposed to meet David Jong tomorrow to deliver mutant materials. James considered. Eric Stone's identity was crucial, it was their main revenue stream, their connection to Carter Jong's network, their pathway to Second Sanctuary information. Eric Stone continues operations, James said. But not in Steel Garden. You meet David in neutral territory, outside shelter jurisdiction, somewhere the warden can't scan you. That'll make David suspicious. Tell him Eric is paranoid about the warden investigation. Tell him you don't want to risk being flagged. David will understand, everyone's spooked right now. Clone 2 nodded slowly. It could work. It has to work. Because if we get caught, everything ends. The next day, Clone 2 met David Jong 15 miles from Steel Garden, in a clearing that had once been a primitive creature nesting ground before hunters cleared it out. David arrived on a mount-type beast soul, a massive wolf with silver fur that flickered like starlight. He dismounted smoothly, looking around the empty clearing. Eric. Why the change in location? Clone 2, wearing the face shift mask and fully embodying the Eric Stone persona, shrugged. You heard about the warden? Everyone's heard about the warden. Steel Garden isn't the only shelter under investigation. 3 other First Sanctuary shelters got hit with monitoring stations yesterday. Then you understand why I'm not going near any shelter right now. David studied him. What are they looking for? Forbidden beast soul types, apparently. Replication classification, whatever that means. David's expression shifted, something between concern and calculation. Replication. That's rare. I've only heard of 2 cases in the last decade. Both times, the hunters involved were executed by wardens. Clone 2 kept his voice neutral. Good thing I don't have one of those, then. Do you? If I did, do you think I'd be stupid enough to tell you? David laughed, but there was an edge to it. Fair point. So, you have the materials? Clone 2 unsealed a storage container, a primitive tier beast soul that could hold up to 500 pounds of materials in compressed space. Inside, 120 pounds of mutant meat, 6 carapace plates, 2 poison glands, and 3 claws suitable for weapon crafting. Total value, approximately $38,000. David examined everything with practiced efficiency. Quality is good. Carter will be pleased. Payment? David transferred the funds immediately, $40,000, $2,000 above asking price. Bonus for dealing with the warden situation, David explained. Carter knows this is risky right now. He appreciates your continued business. Clone 2 accepted the payment. Tell Carter the first will need different meeting protocols going forward. Neutral locations only. No shelter involvement. He'll agree. Honestly, he prefers it this way, less exposure to local politics. David paused. One more thing. Carter wanted me to ask if you're interested in acquiring specialized beast souls. What kind? Transformation types. Face shifting, voice modulation, physical alteration. He has contacts in Second Sanctuary who deal in them. Clone 2's interest sharpened. Costs? For primitive tier face shift souls, $25,000 to $30,000. Sacred blood transformation souls run $200,000 to $400,000. But Carter can get discounts for bulk purchases or trade agreements. Clone 2 already had a primitive tier face shift mask, but the idea of upgrading to sacred blood intrigued him. A sacred blood transformation could alter height, build, even apparent age. It would make the Eric Stone identity completely untraceable. I'll think about it, Clone 2 said. Right now, I'm focusing on defensive souls. Mental protection, psychic shielding. Smart, given what happened in the Eastern Ravine. Clone 2 went very still. What do you know about that? Only what everyone knows, some hunter or group of hunters killed a mutant with psychic abilities. Triggered the warden investigation. David's eyes narrowed. That wasn't you, was it? I don't hunt psychic creatures. Too dangerous. Good policy. David mounted his wolf again. I'll pass your requirements to Carter. Expect a catalog of defensive beast souls by tomorrow. Same payment terms as before. They parted ways. Clone 2 waited until David was completely out of sight before dismissing the face shift mask and reporting through the link. David knows about the Ravine kill. And Carter's offering transformation souls. Buy one, James said immediately. Sacred blood tier if we can afford it. I want you completely unrecognizable when operating as Eric Stone. That'll cost at least $200,000. We only have $223,000 total. Then we hunt more mutants. We sell more materials. We get the money. Clone 1 cut in. We have a bigger problem. Clone 4 just reported that the monitoring station in Steel Garden is getting more aggressive. It scanned him 3 times today. Each time, Predator evolution barely masked the signature. James felt cold dread. How long before it identifies him definitively? Unknown. Days, maybe. Weeks if we're lucky. Then Clone 4 needs to leave Steel Garden entirely. Establish a new base of operations in a different shelter. Which one? Clone 4 asked. James thought quickly. Iron Valley Shelter. It's 40 miles north, smaller population, less oversight. You can infiltrate their logistics network the same way you did Steel Garden. What about our long-term plan to take over Steel Garden? We table it. Marcus Hahn isn't going anywhere, and we can't risk confronting him while the warden is watching. We focus on survival first, empire building second. The clones absorbed the decision. All right, Clone 4 said. I'll relocate to Iron Valley tomorrow. But I'll need a completely new identity. Michael Park might be flagged if I use it again. Create something different. Different age, different background, different mannerisms. I'll need a transformation soul too. The more different I look from you, the safer we all are. James nodded. Priority purchases, 2 transformation beast souls. 1 sacred blood for Clone 2, 1 primitive for Clone 4. Cost? Clone 2 calculated, approximately 230,000 total. We're 7,000 short. Then we make up the difference. Clone 1, Clone 3, there's a mutant nest 20 miles east. Clone 4 identified it last week. 3 mutants, no psychic abilities. Can you handle it? Clone 1 and Clone 3 exchanged glances through the link. We can handle it, Clone 1 said. But it'll take planning. 3 mutants at once is dangerous even with our gear. You have 2 days. Plan, prepare, then execute. Clone 2, you focus on the Carter-Jong relationship, keep the supply line stable. Clone 4, start your relocation to Iron Valley. Orders given, the clones dispersed. James, sitting in his dorm room on Earth, pulled up his gene point display. James Park, First Sanctuary. Ordinary gene points, 100 100ths. Primitive gene points, 100 100ths. Mutant gene points, 78.3 out of 100. Sacred blood gene points, 0 100. He was close to maxing mutant. 1 or 2 more major kills would do it. Then he'd unlock Clone 5. But first, they had to survive the Warden investigation. Clone 4 relocated to Iron Valley Shelter the next day, using a transport beast soul, a bird type that could carry a single person at high speed. The journey took 3 hours. Iron Valley was smaller than Steel Garden, maybe 3,000 residents compared to Steel Garden's 8,000. The architecture was different too, more wood and stone, less metal. It looked almost medieval. Clone 4 entered using forged credentials he'd purchased from a black market document forger in Steel Garden. His new identity, Nathan Cross, 22 years old, logistics specialist looking for work. The shelter's administration hired him within 2 hours. Apparently, Iron Valley was desperate for competent workers. Most hunters preferred combat roles over paperwork. Clone 4 settled into his new position, learning the shelter's operations, mapping its power structure. The shelter lord here was a woman named Lisa Tran, 45 years old, maxed First Sanctuary genes, known for being fair but ruthless with rule breakers. She ran Iron Valley like a military operation, strict schedules, mandatory training, zero tolerance for corruption. Clone 4 respected that. It made infiltration harder, but it also meant the shelter was more stable. No warden monitoring station here. Yet. Meanwhile, Clone 1 and Clone 3 were executing their plan for the mutant nest. The creatures were insectoid, each one about 8 feet long, with armored carapaces and mandibles that secreted paralytic venom. They nested in an abandoned mine shaft, defending it aggressively against any intrusion. Clone 1 and Clone 3 spent 12 hours observing, noting patrol patterns, feeding schedules, territorial boundaries. Then they struck. Clone 1 went in first, drawing aggression. The mutants swarmed immediately, all 3 attacking simultaneously. Clone 3 was positioned above the mine entrance with a primitive tier bow, firing arrows at joints and eye clusters. The fight was brutal. Clone 1 took venom hits multiple times, his left arm went numb, his vision blurred. But Predator evolution kicked in, his body adapting to neutralize the toxin within minutes. Clone 3's arrows found their marks. 2 mutants went down, their carapaces cracked, ichor leaking. The 3rd mutant retreated into the mine shaft. Clone 1 pursued. It was a trap. The mutant had laid webbing, sticky, nearly invisible in the darkness. Clone 1's feet caught, and he went down hard. The mutant lunged. Clone 3 appeared from the shadows, driving a spear through the creature's abdomen from below. The mutant convulsed, mandibles snapping inches from Clone 1's face, then went still. 3 mutant kills. Gene points flooded the system. Clone 1, plus 24.1 mutant gene points. Clone 3, plus 24.1 mutant gene points. James, on Earth, felt the surge. His mutant gene count jumped from 78.3 to 102.4. Gene threshold exceeded, 100 mutant gene points. New clone unlock available. James gasped, body convulsing in his wheelchair. Evolution tore through him, bones restructuring, muscles compressing, neural pathways accelerating. His senses exploded outward, sharper than ever before. When it passed, he was breathing hard, covered in sweat. 102.4 mutant gene points. And the ability to summon Clone 5. But the notification also brought a warning. Baptism available. Mutant gene category warning. Baptism initiates 7-day sanctuary transition countdown. Recommend completion of all gene categories before baptism. James stared at the text. He could baptize now. Unlock his full mutant tier potential. But that would start the countdown to second sanctuary. He wasn't ready. Not even close. He dismissed the baptism notification and focused on the clone unlock. Should he summon Clone 5 now? Or wait? Another clone meant more hunting power, but it also meant more genetic signatures for the Warden to potentially detect. James decided to wait. Better to keep Clone 5 in reserve until the Warden situation stabilized. 2 days later, Clone 2 met David Zhang again in neutral territory. This time, David brought a catalog, a physical book filled with beast soul listings, complete with images and specifications. Carter's personal collection, David explained. These are souls he's acquired but hasn't sold yet. He's offering you first pick at 10% below market rate. Clone 2 flipped through the catalog. There, page 47. Sacred Blood Transformation Beast Soul, Chameleonic Metamorphosis Type, Special Effect, Complete Physical Alteration, Height plus or minus 6 inches, Build, Facial Features, Voice, Apparent Age plus or minus 10 years, Duration, Indefinite, Until Dismissed, Cost, $185,000, discounted from $205,000. Perfect. I'll take this one, Clone 2 said, pointing. David raised an eyebrow. Expensive choice. But effective. Carter will be pleased, he's been trying to move that soul for months. Why hasn't anyone bought it? Most hunters don't need that level of transformation. And the ones who do are usually criminals who can't afford it. Clone 2 transferred $185,000. David handed over a small crystal, the beast's soul in storage form. Clone 2 absorbed it immediately. The sensation was overwhelming. The chameleonic metamorphosis integrated with his body at a cellular level, merging with the existing face shift mask, amplifying it exponentially. Clone 2 felt his form shifting, possibilities opening. He could be anyone now. Any height, any build, any face. He tested it. His body elongated, gained 4 inches. His face restructured, sharper cheekbones, different nose, darker skin tone. His voice dropped an octave. David stared. That's disturbing. Clone 2 smiled with a face that wasn't his. Perfect. He shifted back to Eric Stone's established appearance, the one David recognized, but internally, he was cataloging the possibilities. With this soul, Eric Stone could become anyone. And no warden would ever connect him to James Park. Tell Carter the purchase was satisfactory, Clone 2 said. I'll need another soul soon, primitive transformation type, for a colleague. I'll send the listings tomorrow. They concluded the transaction. Clone 2 returned to the wilderness, where Clone 1 and Clone 3 were processing the mutant nest materials. Total haul, 180 pounds of mutant meat, 12 carapace segments, 6 venom glands, and 1 beast soul, a weapon type, a spear that dripped paralytic poison. Clone 2 examined the spear. This is worth at least 40,000. Sell it through Eric Stone, Clone 1 said. We need to recoup the transformation soul cost. Agreed. They divided the mutant meat equally. Each clone consumed their share raw, gagging on the bitter taste but forcing it down. Gene points accumulated. Plus 18.9 each. James's mutant count climbed to 121.3. He was now significantly over the max threshold. Any more gains would be wasted until he baptized and moved to second sanctuary. Which meant it was time to shift focus. New directive, James said through the link. We stop hunting mutants. We start targeting sacred blood creatures exclusively. The clones paused. That's a massive jump in difficulty, Clone 3 said. I know. But mutant gene points are capped for me now. The only way to progress is sacred blood. James pulled up his display again. We need 100 sacred blood gene points. At approximately 15 to 20 points per kill, that's 5 to 7 sacred blood creatures. Which could take months, Clone 1 said. Sacred blood creatures are rare, territorial, and exponentially more dangerous than mutants. Then we get creative. We don't fight them head on. We use traps, ambushes, environmental advantages. We become hunters, not warriors. Clone 2 nodded slowly. I can research sacred blood migration patterns through Carter's network. Find out where they nest, when they're vulnerable. Clone 4 can gather intelligence from Iron Valley's archives, Clone 4 added. They maintain records on creature sightings going back decades. And Clone 1 and Clone 3 can scout territories, Clone 3 said. Identify targets, map escape routes. Good, James said. We have a plan. Execute it. That night, James lay in his dorm room, feeling his 4 clones through the link. Clone 1 and Clone 3 were in the deep wilderness, tracking a sacred blood bear that had been sighted near a canyon system. Clone 2 was negotiating with one of Carter's information brokers, purchasing maps of sacred blood territories. Clone 4 was in Iron Valley's archives, copying files onto a data pad. All working. All hunting. All evolving. And in 7 days, James would summon Clone 5. His phone buzzed. A message from Emily. Hey. You've been distant lately. Everything okay? James stared at the message. He'd been avoiding Emily, avoiding everyone. Focused entirely on hunting, surviving, evolving. But Emily cared. She always had. He typed back, sorry. Just dealing with a lot. I'm okay. You're a terrible liar. Want to talk? Not really. But, thank you. All right. But James? Whatever you're doing, whatever you're planning. Just remember you're not alone. You have people who care about you. James felt something tighten in his chest. I know, he typed. Thank you, Emily. He set down his phone and closed his eyes. In the sanctuary, his clones were hunting monsters. On Earth, he was becoming one. But somewhere in between, he was still James Park. Still human. Still capable of being saved. Even if he wasn't sure he wanted to be. The notification appeared during Clone 1's morning patrol, 3 weeks after the Warden's initial investigation. Clone 1 was tracking a sacred blood deer through dense forest when the text materialized directly in his vision, not in the usual silver of beast soul notifications, but in harsh red. Warden Directive, Mandatory Compliance Report All Forbidden Beast Soul Activity Reward, 2x Gene Point Multiplier, 7 days, Failure to Comply, Targeted Audit Radius, currently 15 miles from Steel Garden Shelter Radius Contracts 1 mile every 48 hours until compliance. Clone 1 froze mid-step. Through the soul link, James felt his blood turn to ice. He was in chemistry class, supposedly taking notes, but his hand had stopped moving entirely. What is that? Clone 2 asked through the link. He was 40 miles away in neutral territory, but the notification had appeared for him too. It's a trap, James said immediately. The Warden is done waiting. It's forcing us out. Clone 3, hunting near the eastern ravine, swore quietly. 15 miles from Steel Garden? That covers 70% of our hunting grounds. And it's contracting, Clone 4 added from Iron Valley. We have. What, 2 weeks before the audit radius reaches 0? Before it scans every inch of territory we've ever operated in? James's mind raced. The Warden wasn't just investigating anymore, it was actively cornering them. The quest was designed to do 3 things simultaneously. Incentivize snitching, a 2x gene point multiplier was massive. Hunters would turn on each other for that kind of power boost. Punish silence, if nobody reported forbidden soul activity, the Warden would simply scan everything itself, slowly but methodically. Force movement, any hunter operating in the contracting radius would have to either relocate, stop hunting, or risk exposure. It was brilliant. Brutal. Inescapable. Unless James could outplay it. Pull up the audit radius on a map, James commanded. I need to see exactly what we're dealing with. Clone 4, still embedded in Iron Valley's administrative systems, accessed territorial mapping software and overlaid the Warden's audit zone. The radius appeared as a red circle centered on Steel Garden Shelter. Currently 15 miles. Contracting 1 mile every 48 hours. Clone 4 highlighted their known hunting zones in blue. The overlap was catastrophic. 80% of our mutant hunting grounds are inside the radius, Clone 4 reported. All our sacred blood tracking sites. The ravine where we killed the psychic creature. Even some of our supply caches. How long before the radius reaches the ravine specifically? James asked. Clone 4 calculated. 12 days. Maybe 13. And if the Warden scans the ravine, It'll find residual energy signatures from the axolotl sovereign form activation, Clone 1 said grimly. We're caught. James felt the trap closing. The warden had maneuvered them into a corner with frightening efficiency. But traps only worked if you didn't see them coming. And James saw this one clearly. All right, James said. We're going to treat this like what it is, a game. The warden is the admin, we're the player exploiting the rules. We need to outplay the system. How? Clone 2 asked. James's mind crystallized around a multi-part strategy. First, we relocate all hunting operations to dead zones, areas the audit radius won't reach even at full contraction. Clone 4, pull up maps of wilderness beyond 30 miles from Steel Garden. Clone 4's fingers flew across the stolen tablet. There are 3 viable zones. Northern wastelands, minimal creature density but safe. Western canyons, higher creature concentration, more dangerous terrain. Southern marshlands, sacred blood territory, extremely hazardous. We split operations. Clone 1 takes the northern wastelands. Clone 2 and Clone 3 take the western canyons. Clone 4 stays in Iron Valley gathering intelligence. What about the quest reward? Clone 3 asked. The 2x gene multiplier is huge. If other hunters take it and we don't, we fall behind. James considered. The multiplier was bait, accepting the quest would mark them in the warden's system, make them traceable. But refusing it while others benefited would slow their progression significantly. We use it selectively, James decided. Clone 4, you're not flagged by the warden yet. You can accept the quest in Iron Valley without triggering suspicion. Hunt normally, report fake forbidden soul activity, collect the multiplier. What kind of fake activity? We manufacture it. Find a low-level criminal in Iron Valley, someone already breaking sanctuary regulations. Frame them with an illegal beast soul, report them to the warden, collect the reward. Clone 4 was quiet for a moment. That's ruthless. That's survival, James said flatly. The warden wants reports? We give it reports. Just not real ones. What if the warden investigates the reports and realizes they're staged? Then we make them convincing. Find actual criminals doing actual illegal things. We're just accelerating their discovery. Clone 2 cut in, I can source illegal beast souls through Carter's network. Low-grade forbidden items, replication types, mind control souls, the kind of thing the warden is actively hunting. We plant them on criminals, then report them. Perfect, James said. That's phase 1, feed the warden false data to buy time. What's phase 2? Clone 1 asked. Phase 2 is psychological. We make the warden think it's winning. We let it catch small fish, minor violations, petty criminals. It'll think the quest system is working, that hunters are complying. That'll slow the radius contraction, maybe even halt it. And phase 3? James smiled coldly. Phase 3 is when we use the quest system against itself. We accept the multiplier under false identities, report each other in staged busts, and double our gene gains while the warden wastes resources chasing ghosts. The clones absorb the plan. It's complicated, Clone 3 said. It's necessary, James replied. The warden is treating us like prey. We need to remind it that we can think. The plan began immediately. Clone 4, operating as Nathan Cross in Iron Valley, accepted the warden quest through the sanctuary interface. The 2x gene multiplier activated instantly, a visible buff icon in his peripheral vision showing 7 days remaining. He started hunting ordinary creatures near Iron Valley. With the multiplier, each kill gave double gene points. Normally useless since James had maxed ordinary genes, but Clone 4's individual count was still building, and the multiplier's real value was proving the system could be exploited. Simultaneously, Clone 4 began researching Iron Valley's criminal population. There, a hunter named Marcus Webb. Convicted 3 times for poaching in restricted zones. Currently under shelter probation. Known to operate in gray markets. Clone 4 approached him carefully, posing as a buyer. I hear you can get rare beast souls, Clone 4 said during a chance meeting at a supply shop. Marcus Webb was a wiry man in his 30s, scarred and suspicious. Depends what you're looking for. Something special. Transformation type, maybe mind influence. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Those are expensive. And illegal. I have money. They negotiated. Marcus claimed he could source a primitive tier mind control beast soul for $35,000. Highly illegal, mind control souls were banned in First Sanctuary due to abuse potential. Clone 4 agreed to the deal. 3 days later, Marcus delivered. The beast soul was real, a small crystal that pulsed with sickly green light. Clone 4 took it, paid Marcus, and then immediately reported him to the warden monitoring station. Forbidden Beast Soul Report submitted subject, Marcus Webb violation, possession/trade of mind control soul reward processing. 6 hours later, Marcus Webb was arrested by shelter guards acting on warden directive. The illegal soul was confiscated. Marcus was executed, thrown outside the shelter walls during a creature surge, exactly as Emily had described happening to another poacher. Clone 4 felt nothing watching it happen. Marcus had been a criminal. The system would have caught him eventually anyway. The warden notification appeared. Report verified reward, gene multiplier extended plus 3 days additional reward, $500. Clone 4 reported the success through the link. It worked, he said. The warden accepted the report. Multiplier extended. And Marcus Webb is dead. James felt a flicker of something, guilt, maybe, but suppressed it. Good. How many more criminals can you identify in Iron Valley? At least 4 with existing violations. I can repeat the process. Do it. Space them out, 1 report per week. Make it look natural. Meanwhile, Clone 2 was executing as part of the plan. Through Carter Jong's network, he purchased 3 low-grade Forbidden Beast souls, all illegal, all cheap. Total cost, $18,000. He transported them to Steel Gardens territory and began planting them. The first soul went into the possession of a known smuggler operating in Steel Gardens black market. Clone 2 broke into the man's storage cache and left the soul there, then anonymously tipped off shelter guards. The smuggler was caught within hours. Executed. Clone 2 reported the discovery to the warden as if he'd personally witnessed the violation. Report verified reward, gene multiplier activated, 2x, 7 days now. Clone 2 had the multiplier too. The second and third souls were planted on hunters. Clone 2 identified as poaching in restricted zones, real criminals doing real illegal things, just not the specific crime Clone 2 was framing them for. Both were caught. Both executed. Clone 2 collected the rewards. Within 2 weeks, the Warden Quest system had killed 6 people, none of them James's clones, all of them criminals who'd violated sanctuary regulations in some capacity. And the audit radius stopped contracting. Warden Directive Update compliance threshold reached. Audit radius stabilized at 12 miles. Continued monitoring, active. James watched the notification with grim satisfaction. The warden thought its system was working. Hunters were reporting violations, criminals were being caught, the radius had stopped shrinking. It had no idea James was manufacturing the reports. Phase 1 successful, James said through the link. The warden is satisfied. We've bought time. How much time? Clone 1 asked. He was 50 miles north, deep in the wastelands, tracking a sacred blood wolf pack. Unknown. But the radius is stable. We can operate safely outside 12 miles indefinitely. What about Phase 3? Clone 3 asked. The staged busts where we report each other? James had been thinking about that. We need different identities first. Clone 2, how's the chameleonic metamorphosis working? Clone 2 shifted forms as he responded, his body elongating, face restructuring into someone completely different. Perfect. I can be anyone. Good. Create a new hunter identity. Register it in a different shelter. Make it look like a legitimate hunter with no connection to us. What for? You're going to commit a minor forbidden soul violation with that identity. Then Clone 4 is going to report you. The warden will investigate, find the staged violation, and you'll escape during the arrest. The warden gets its bust, Clone 4 gets the multiplier reward, and we all benefit. That's actually brilliant, Clone 3 said. It's risky, Clone 1 countered. If the warden catches Clone 2 during the staged arrest. It won't. Clone 2 can shift forms and disappear. He's untraceable. Clone 2 tested the plan mentally. I'll need a forbidden beast soul to plan on the false identity. Something convincing but not too valuable, we don't want to waste resources. Use one of the low-grade souls Carter's network is selling, James suggested. Register the false identity in Western Ridge Shelter. That's outside the audit radius and far from our operations. Timeline? 2 weeks. That gives you time to establish the identity, build a minimal reputation, then stage the violation. Clone 2 nodded. I can do that. While the warden manipulation continued, Clone 1 and Clone 3 were executing the actual hunting strategy. The northern wastelands were brutal, a desert region where temperatures swung from 120 degrees during the day to near freezing at night. Creature density was low, but the ones that survived here were adapted to extreme conditions. Clone 1 tracked a sacred blood scorpion for 3 days. The creature was massive, 20 feet long, covered in obsidian carapace, with a tail stinger that dripped venom capable of dissolving steel. It hunted at night, ambushing prey from beneath the sand. Clone 1 studied its patterns obsessively. Learned its territory. Identified its den. Then he set a trap. The scorpion's den was a cave system beneath a rock formation. Clone 1 rigged the entrance with explosive charges, primitive tear blast stones purchased from a black market merchant. Then he baited the scorpion out by killing a mutant tear lizard near the den entrance and leaving the corpse. The scorpion emerged at dusk, drawn by the scent. Clone 1 waited until it was fully outside, then detonated the charges. The cave entrance collapsed, sealing the scorpion's retreat. The creature turned, furious, and charged. Clone 1 ran. He'd mapped the terrain for exactly this scenario, a narrow canyon with vertical walls, perfect for funneling the scorpion's movement. The creature pursued, impossibly fast despite its size. Clone 1 led it into the canyon, then triggered the second trap, a rock slide he'd spent 2 days preparing. Boulders crashed down from both sides, crushing the scorpion's legs. It screamed, a sound like metal tearing, and thrashed. Clone 1 circled back with a sacred blood spear he'd purchased specifically for this hunt. The weapon had cost $60,000, nearly depleting their reserves, but it was necessary. He drove the spear through the scorpion's eye, angling for the brain. The creature convulsed once, twice, then died. Sacred blood creature killed gene points awarded, plus 17.3 sacred blood. James, on Earth, gasped as the evolution hit. His first sacred blood gene points. The sensation was different from ordinary, primitive, or mutant, sharper, more refined, like his cells were being rewritten with precision code. His sacred blood count jumped from 0 to 17.3. Clone 1 collapsed beside the corpse, breathing hard, covered in sweat and dust. First sacred blood kill, he reported. Clean. No complications. Good, James said. Harvest everything. That scorpion is worth at least 80,000 in materials. Clone 1 spent 4 hours processing the corpse. The carapace alone was worth 50,000. Sacred blood armor material was in high demand. The venom glands, 20,000. The stinger, 15,000 as a weapon component. No beast's soul dropped. The 10% chance had failed. But the gene points were what mattered. 17.3 sacred blood points. Only 82.7 to go until max. At this rate, 5 more sacred blood kills would do it. Clone 3, operating in the western canyons, had less success. He'd been tracking a sacred blood eagle for a week but couldn't get close enough for a kill. The creature was too fast, too alert. I need support, Clone 3 reported. This thing won't come down. I can't bait it. What do you need? James asked. Another clone. Someone to act as live bait while I position for the shot. James considered summoning Clone 5 but decided against it. Clone 2, can you spare time from the Eric Stone operations? I can spare 3 days. After that, I have a meeting with Carter's people. 3 days. Help Clone 3 kill the eagle, then return to your assignment. Clone 2 and Clone 3 coordinated the hunt. The eagle nested on a cliff face 300 feet high. Its territory was a 5-mile radius around the nest. It hunted by diving from altitude, hitting prey at terminal velocity with talons sharp enough to pierce mutant tear armor. Clone 2 acted as bait, running through open ground while Clone 3 positioned on a parallel cliff with a primitive tear bow. The eagle spotted Clone 2 and dove. Clone 3 fired. The arrow hit, pierced the eagle's wing joint, but didn't kill it. The creature crashed, thrashing, and immediately attacked Clone 2. Clone 2 barely dodged the first talon strike. The second caught his shoulder, tearing through flesh and bone. Regeneration kicked in immediately, but the pain was staggering. Clone 3 fired again. Again. 3 more arrows, all hitting center mass. The eagle died thrashing. Sacred blood creature killed gene points awarded, plus 19.1 sacred blood. James's sacred blood count jumped to 36.4. The evolution was becoming addictive. Each surge made him sharper, faster, stronger. His wheelchair felt increasingly absurd, his body was approaching superhuman levels while his legs remained useless. But that would change. Once he had enough money, once the warden threat passed, he'd schedule the surgery. Clone 2 and Clone 3 harvested the eagle. The feathers were worth 40,000, sacred blood flight materials. The talons, 25,000. The eyes, 15,000 for alchemy components. Total haul, $80,000. Combined with the scorpion materials, they'd earned 160,000 in 1 week. Clone 2 sold everything through Eric Stone's network, negotiating premium rates with Carter's buyers. Their total funds climbed to $198,000. James immediately allocated $30,000 for a primitive tier transformation soul for Clone 4. 50,000 for defensive beast souls, mental protection, armor types 20,000 for weapons and supplies. Remaining 98,000 reserved for surgery fund. The pieces were falling into place. 3 weeks after the Warden quest appeared, Clone 2 executed Phase 3. He'd created a false identity, Ryan Cross, and registered it in Western Ridge Shelter using forged documents. Ryan was supposedly a 24-year-old independent hunter, moderately skilled, no notable achievements. Clone 2 spent 2 weeks building the identity, hunting in Western Ridge territory, making small trades, establishing a presence. Then he staged the violation. He purchased a low-grade forbidden beast soul, a minor mind influence type, barely functional, and made a visible transaction in Western Ridge's marketplace. Then he had Clone 4 report the violation to the Warden. Forbidden beast soul report submitted. Subject: Ryan Cross violation, possession of mind influence soul. The Warden responded within hours. Shelter guards surrounded Ryan Cross's residence. Clone 2, wearing Ryan's face, triggered the chameleonic metamorphosis mid-arrest. His body shifted, shrank 3 inches, face restructuring into someone completely different, voice changing. The guards grabbed empty air. Where did he go? He was just here. Clone 2, now looking like a random bystander, walked past the guards and out of the shelter. The Warden marked Ryan Cross as a fugitive. Clone 4 collected the reward. Report verified subject escaped but violation confirmed reward. Gene multiplier extended plus 5 days additional reward, $800. The scam worked perfectly. James felt a surge of satisfaction. They'd just proven the Warden's system could be exploited. The quest wasn't a trap, it was a resource to be farmed. Run it again, James ordered. Different identity, different shelter, 1 month from now. Space them out so the Warden doesn't notice a pattern. Clone 2 smiled behind his shifted face. This is almost too easy. Don't get cocky, Clone 1 warned. The moment we get sloppy, the Warden will notice. Then we don't get sloppy, James said. By the end of the month, the situation had stabilized into a rhythm. Clone 1 was hunting sacred blood creatures in the northern wastelands. 2 more kills, plus 34.8 sacred blood gene points total. Clone 2 was operating as Eric Stone, managing Carter's supply contracts while running staged Warden violations on the side. Clone 3 was scouting new sacred blood territories in the southern marshlands. Clone 4 was embedded in Iron Valley, reporting manufactured violations and collecting multiplier rewards. James's gene counts. Ordinary, 100 100ths, maxed. Primitive, 100 100ths, maxed. Mutant, 121.3 out of 100, overmaxed. Awaiting baptism. Sacred blood, 71.2 out of 100. The Warden's audit radius remained stable at 12 miles. The quest system continued operating normally. No additional investigations were launched. James had successfully outplayed the Warden. But he knew it was temporary. The Warden wasn't stupid, eventually, it would notice the pattern. Notice that forbidden soul violations were happening in clusters, that reports were coming from the same sources, that something was wrong. When that happened, the real confrontation would begin. But for now, James had time. Time to hunt. Time to grow. Time to build his empire. And time to plan his next move. Because James Park wasn't just surviving anymore. He was winning. And the Warden, like everyone else who'd underestimated him, was about to learn that the boy in the wheelchair was the most dangerous player in the game. Even if nobody knew he was playing yet. The notification came during Clone 3's hunt in the southern marshlands, 6 weeks after they'd begun manipulating the Warden's quest system. Clone 3 was tracking a sacred blood crocodile, a monstrous thing, 40 feet long with scales like obsidian mirrors and jaws capable of crushing sacred blood armor. He'd spent 3 days mapping its territory, learning its patterns, preparing the kill zone. The crocodile surfaced near a mudbank. Clone 3 steadied his breathing, aimed the sacred blood crossbow he'd purchased for $75,000, and fired. The bolt punched through the crocodile's eye socket, angling for the brain. The creature thrashed once, a death spasm that created waves across the entire marsh, then went still. Sacred blood creature killed gene points awarded, plus 21.7 sacred blood. James felt the evolution surge through the link. His sacred blood count jumped from 71.2 to 92.9. But then something new appeared, text he'd never seen before, rendered in brilliant gold instead of the usual silver. Achievement unlocked, triple sanctuary dominance. 3 gene categories maxed in single sanctuary tier ranking system access granted. Your performance is now visible to all sanctuary hunters. James's blood went cold. What is that? Clone 1 asked urgently. Before anyone could respond, Another notification appeared. First Sanctuary Rankings, Top 100 Hunters Updating. A list materialized in James's vision: names, gene point totals, accomplishments. It scrolled automatically to show his position. Rank 47, James Park Ordinary, 100 100ths Primitive, 100 100ths Mutant, 121.3 out of 100 Sacred Blood, 92.9 out of 100 total effective gene points, 414.2 Shelter Affiliation, Steel Garden Status, Unbaptized. James stared at the ranking in horror. His name. His real name. His gene counts. All visible to every hunter in First Sanctuary. Oh no, Clone 4 breathed. James, this is bad. Really bad. Clone 2 was already pulling up the full rankings through the Sanctuary interface. There are thousands of hunters in First Sanctuary. Most of them have 200 to 300 total gene points. The top rankers are all in the 350 to 450 range. Who's rank 1? James asked, though he dreaded the answer. Clone 2 scrolled to the top. Rank 1, Han Jiwoo Ordinary, 100 100ths Primitive, 100 100ths Mutant, 100 100ths Sacred Blood, 98.4 out of 100 total effective gene points, 498.4 Shelter Affiliation, Crimson Peak Status, Preparing Baptism. She's almost maxed everything, Clone 3 said quietly. 4 categories. That's insane. Look at Rank 2, Clone 1 added. Rank 2, Victor Stone Ordinary, 100 100ths Primitive, 100 100ths Mutant, 100 100ths Sacred Blood, 94.1 out of 100 total effective gene points, 494.1 Shelter Affiliation, Iron Fortress Status, Unbaptized. James forced himself to breathe. The rankings were public. His progress was public. Everyone could see that a 16-year-old from Steel Garden Shelter had somehow accumulated over 400 gene points while still unbaptized. And everyone would start asking questions. We need to assess the damage, Clone 4 said. How many people are seeing this? Everyone, Clone 2 replied grimly. The ranking system is First Sanctuary wide. Every hunter with access to the Sanctuary interface can see it. That includes Marcus Hahn, Clone 1 said. Steel Garden's Shelter Lord. He's going to notice a 16-year-old cripple from his own shelter suddenly appearing in the top 50. That includes the Warden, Clone 4 added. It's been looking for genetic anomalies. This ranking just handed it a complete profile. James felt panic rising but forced it down. Okay. Damage control. What can we do? Nothing about the ranking itself, Clone 2 said. It's system generated. We can't hide it or fake it. Can we remove ourselves from the rankings? I don't see an option for that. It seems automatic once you hit certain thresholds. Clone 3 was thinking. The ranking shows Shelter Affiliation as Steel Garden. But James hasn't been to Steel Garden in weeks. We could claim it's a mistake. It's not a mistake, Clone 4 interrupted. The Sanctuary tracks your registration shelter. James registered through Seoul International Academy's portal, which is linked to Steel Garden administratively. The system knows exactly where he belongs. Then we redirect attention, Clone 1 said. Make people look somewhere else. How? James asked. Clone 1's expression hardened. We make noise with the clones. If 3 different hunters suddenly appear in the rankings around the same time, all from different shelters, people will focus on them instead of you. James understood immediately. You want to push Clone 1, Clone 2, and Clone 3 into the top 100 as separate identities. Exactly. Clone 2 is already operating as Eric Stone with a full false identity and the chameleonic metamorphosis. Clone 4 is Nathan Cross in Iron Valley. I can create a new identity for myself. Same with Clone 3.